Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order this Committee of the Whole meeting of the Council of the Town of Saugeen Shores. Welcome everyone to the chambers this evening. First item on the agenda is disclosure of pecuniary interest, and I'll ask any member if they have a pecuniary interest with anything on the agenda that they'd like to declare. Being none, I'll remind you can declare at any time should the need arise. The next item is deputations, and we have 4 deputations on the agenda this evening, and I'll just, before I call the first deputant, I'll just say, as you can see, Council has a fairly lengthy agenda tonight, and 4 deputations and a lot of business to do after that. So if the deputants could make an effort to keep the time limit in control down to 10 minutes, that would be very helpful. Linda will be doing some timing for us, and if you get up over the 10-minute mark, I may just gently chime in and let you know that, or ask you if you can wrap it up for us. So with that, I'll ask our first deputant to come forward, and that's Francesca Dobbin from the United Way. Welcome, Francesca.
But quite often I get now Francesca will provide us with a short, and I'm the only one who gets the short designation. So, but I will get through my information fairly quickly. So as much as I will speak fast, one must listen fast as well. So thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to you tonight about our utility assistance program. We've been running this program for many years. We started in 2006 with a grant from Just Union Gas. It was around $6,000. In 2009, we added Hydro One and Westario customers to that program, and due to community need and demand, we added our community fund, which covers the wood, oil, and propane through community fundraised dollars. So as I said, we started out with a $6,000 program, and you can see some variances in the year, and there's explanations behind 2011 and 12 as to why those were so significantly different from the other years. But 2013 was a more normal year in what we anticipated in fundraising. And then we had, you know, the 2014 winter that never ended, and ended up assisting with over $300,000 worth of assistance. And these are calendar years. And so we've spent $1.1 million in 10 years on utility assistance. We use 211 as the intake for our utility assistance program. It is live answer 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, totally free. And also then enables people who are inquiring with utility issues to connect to other issues, other resources in the community, such as food banks, etc. And they answered 3,000 inquiries in 2014, which is up well over 500 inquiries from 2014, a 21% increase in calls. So who's accessing our program? The average income of our clients is just under $17,000 a year. And to give you some context for that, I know the average income for Saugeen Shores people is about $107,000. LICO for a family of 3, the low income cutoff is $28,000, and the average Ontario income is $48,000. So you can certainly see that our clients are definitely considered low income. This is the LICO chart that is used by the utility assistance programs across the province for eligibility criteria, and I won't read it. It's just there for your information. So for the parameters for the program, you must meet the LICO chart requirements in terms of income. The bill must be in the applicant's name. We are often challenged sometimes where the bill's in the landlord's name, but the agreement is that the tenant pay it. And we have interesting discussions when that happens. We do require ID for the whole household, 1 month's bank statements, which will predominantly show the income and housing costs as well, what the current bill is, and proof of income if it's not available on the bank statement. So we do a full financial assessment. We do a financial literacy meeting with all our clients and look at other strategies around their income to see what we can do to assist. It's 1 grant per utility per calendar year, $500 maximum grant. If it's electric heat, we can take that to $600. And the household costs must be sustainable. Unfortunately, for sustainability purposes, we throw that out the window because if you're on Ontario Works or Ontario Disability, there is no such thing as sustainability. Your income is just too low for your utility costs to be sustainable. You just don't have enough money. And unfortunately, our grant has remained at $500 for the 10 years, despite the rising cost of energy. When we started out, our $500 would fill a oil tank. It's now half. And propane, we're not even going to go there. So this is what we spent in 2014 on our community fund, just to give you an idea, $124,000, predominantly on oil, wood, and then a little bit on propane. 215 client files versus 54 the year before. So you can see the massive jump in need from 13 to 14. So for the Ontario Energy Board mandated and regulated utilities, which is natural gas and electricity, they've been mandated under the Provincial Poverty Reduction Strategy to set aside money for low-income energy assistance. And they have to set aside 0.12% of their total board-approved distribution revenue, or $2,000. And up to 15% of that may be retained for agency administration fees. So that's what we get to keep to pay the staff who do this. It's nowhere near enough, trust me. I have 2 staff now working on it. So for Union Gas, our total spent in 2014 was just over $66,000, 161 families throughout Bruce and Grey counties, and these are all Bruce and Grey, with an average income of $20,000. Hydro One, just shy of $90,000, 186 different families, average income just under $15,000. And Westerio, we spent $23,000. 12.5 came from the OEB mandated funding. We fundraised both with Westerio Power employees, as well as accessed some other dollars from the community to achieve the $23,000, and processed 50 client files for Westerio Power. The average income of Westerio Power clients was just over $15,000. Their average bill is lower than the other utility companies at $383, or the average grant, I should say, and the average bill is over $500. We had 5 clients with bills over $1,000, and the smallest bill was $100. So with the OEB regulations, we waive security deposits. So if that's a requirement from the utility because of a bad credit history, then that gets waived because we've accredited them as low income and unable to do a security deposit. If there is a security deposit on the file, it gets applied to any arrears. If there's a billing error, anybody who's been following Hydro One and the Ombudsman knows about the billing errors. We can assist with that in terms of negotiation. We can't reduce them. Equalized billing without automatic withdrawal, because part of the challenge with automatic withdrawal is you got to make sure the money's in the bank or you start getting NSF fees, and that can be a challenge for low-income folks if the direct deposit hasn't happened from the Ontario Works or Ontario Disability. And a grace period of 21 days. So if somebody has a disconnect notice for tomorrow and they called us today, we get a 21-day stall on that for us to process the application and go through and deal with the with that needs. And that's why we have staff that are dedicated to this, because we've got to communicate immediately with the utility company that Joe Smith has applied to our program, stop the truck, and we'll go from there. And we have had calls from the field, from the people in the trucks. Payment arrangement plans. Eligible low-income customers are allowed to make payment arrangements. I won't go through the breakdown, but basically if you owe less than twice your average monthly bill, you get less time. If you owe more than 5 times your bill, you get more time. And we just take it and spread it out over a longer period of time to ease the burden. This is, again, all that information on how to make those payment arrangements. So what we're looking for as we go around and we're talking to the various municipalities about our challenges specific to Westerio Power is what we're looking for is more time. So sometimes, especially in the height of winter, 21 days is not enough time. We're in Owen Sound. Sometimes clients can't get to us. Sometimes our program is so subscribed, we can only see 16 people a day. And if our Hanover day is already booked up, they have to wait another 2 to 3 weeks for us to get to Hanover, because there's no point spending $20 on gas driving to us if you can't pay your bill. So we need more time beyond that 21-day under certain circumstances. So if we ask for it, we're asking that we be granted that. If our grant, if our $500 covers up to 75% of what the outstanding arrears is, that reconnection will happen between November and May, or a disconnect will not happen between November and May. We're looking for winter relief here. And we're looking for payment of arrears, not a payment of arrears plus current usage. We've had a couple of cases where we've paid off the arrears and they say, well, the current usage is due too, so let's, you have to pay that, or we're still going to go ahead with the disconnect, even though that current is not actually due. And payment history needs to be taken into consideration for disconnect. So if we've got a family that's, throwing $75 at it every month versus a family that's just stopped paying it out of sheer frustration, then, work with us on these issues. And this would apply to all the social services agencies that are working on this, Y Housing, ourselves, the counties. And that's what we're looking for from West Stereo. So that's really fast. But a lot of information, so I'll take questions.
That's excellent, Francesca, and thank you very much. And I will take questions from the committee, but first I just wanted to point out, as everyone knows, Saugeen Shores is a major shareholder in West Stereo Power, and our representatives from West Stereo Power, our representative, Mark Kramer, as well as the president and CEO of West Stereo Power, Lisa Milne, will be here at our next council meeting to do a presentation for council. So that's just for everybody's information, and will be a good opportunity for us to follow up on some of the things that you're raising this evening. And with that, I'll ask if there's any questions or comments from members of the committee. Vice Deputy Mayor Huber.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Charbonneau. Francesca, I'm just curious, you've isolated out West Stereo Power. Has Hydro One and Union Gas, the things that you're saying here that West Stereo is not really too keen on, are those other utilities doing that already?
Union Gas and Hydro One have a policy of not disconnecting December 1st to March 31st as a general flat-out policy. They do not disconnect in the winter. West Stereo Power has disconnected people in the winter. We've had calls when it's minus 18 that people have been disconnected. And that's a concern for us.
Further questions? Councillor Minaj.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I would just like to ask, so this was presented to West Stereo Power, and they made comment on this same request?
I've made this presentation to Kincardine Council, and I will be making this presentation to Brockton Council. I have asked for about 3 years to speak to the board of West Stereo. Was informed that the meetings are not set up for deputation. I have asked for, can I do coffee and muffins before a board meeting? And was told no. I have not been able to actually speak to the West Stereo board as a board to present these issues. I've only been speaking with staff.
That's something I'd like to follow up on. Thank you, Luke.
Further questions? Councillor Rich.
To you, Deputy Mayor Charbonneau. Thanks for your presentation. The one question I had was you asked for extension longer than 21 days. What do you think could be appropriate?
Honestly, another 20, I'd like it open-ended sometimes, simply because it takes us time, but another 2 to 3 weeks, or if we can say, we have said, okay, the person's appointment is in 4 weeks, and they've said that's outside the 21-day window. So in the specific circumstances was another 5 days I was asking for.
30 days?
But 30 days would certainly give us time. And we are certainly accountable to our clients that if we've had people who, call, make the appointment, and we negotiate for that appointment, and then they don't make the appointment,
No, that's fine. 30 days is
yeah,
good.
30 days is helpful.
The other thing was, you said the payment history should be taken into consideration. Would you like someone who is continuing with a small amount of payments to be looked at more beneficial or more favorably than someone who has stopped paying altogether? Is that what you're inferring?
Yes, because to me it speaks to the intent to try and pay the bill. It's not just it's. I know one of West Stereo's concerns, and they're a small company, and they're totally legit, and we're only asking for this for our clients, for low-income clients, not a general. Hey, we're not going to disconnect anywhere like the blanket that Hydro One and Union Gas do. This is just for our clients and for people who are certified low income because they're doing their best. It's just when you have $800 a month bills and you're $1,200 and you got rent and yeah.
Thank you very much.
Further questions? Well, thanks very much, Francesca. I think that one person disconnected in the winter is one too many.
Absolutely.
And we're lucky, I think, in Saugeen Shores in that, at least the statistics I have from West Stereo Power show that this last winter, according to their statistics, there were 7 disconnects in Southampton and Port Elgin that took place, but 1 is too many.
Absolutely.
And so I think that we need to, I think there's lots of different ways that we can look at this, and I think that we ought to do that, and I think we're going to have the chance in the next couple of weeks to talk to our representatives from West Ontario Power, who I know also are very keen to deal with this issue, and they also believe that 1 disconnect is too many. So I think that there's lots of opportunity for us to work together and solve this problem for a few needy people in our community.
Absolutely. The answer lies in partnership.
Thank you very much, Francesca.
Thank you.
Our next deputation, if I can find it, is from Jeff Carver, the president of the Port Elgin Business Improvement Area. Jeff, take it away.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Charbonneau. Council, I will be brief because it does look like a full agenda and I wouldn't want to sit here for the whole. Anyway, I'm here today to speak on the on the Port Elgin Farmers Market. And I'm here, on that note, I'm here to allude to our budget for the 2015 year, as well as briefly to touch on the strategic plan that we just completed. First of all, I'd like to start with the market, and there's 2 parts to that. The first part is that we are asking that Saugeen Shores Council waive the vendor fee for 1 more year. This market has grown and grown, and it is on the verge, I think, as well as the other business owners in the downtown, of becoming a very permanent fixture in our community. And with any business pulling money, revenue out of the business too soon can too often spell its demise. We are close, and for that reason we're asking that the fees be waived for 1 more year. As it is, the BIA is collecting a small fee from each vendor, which we are reinvesting directly into the municipality through the Department of Community Services. And this last year was our first year with that, in a project to pay 1/3 of the value of staff wages for a downtown maintenance person. So this money is directly going back into the municipality already and into keeping the downtown beautiful. That's the first part, and that's the first request I'd like to bring forward. The second part of that is what I think is likely a formality, and that's for Council's endorsement, again, for the Alcohol and Gaming Commission of Ontario to allow for the sale and sampling of VQA wines at the farmers market. This was extremely successful last year, and Port Elgin was one of the very first farmers markets to take advantage of the new opportunity with VQA wines, and I believe it's being expanded for microbrews. Excuse me. So we would like to have that endorsement from you folks once again. The next item I'd just like to quickly touch on here is our strategic plan. We have completed, with the help of Councillor Minaj, our strategic plan setting out the goals and vision for the BIA for the next 4 years. And let's say right off the hop that a 41% response rate from the membership is pretty impressive. It's just shy of the voter turnout in the last municipal election. So we're taking this as a very clear mandate from the membership as to what the next 4 years will hold. And they see the priorities of the BIA being in the area of beautification and the maintenance of municipally owned land, buildings and structures that fall within the BIA area. The other goal is to promote the area as a destination, as a shopping area. And I guess to highlight the desires and some of the things that came out of the survey specifically, there was broad support for the revamping of Coulter Parkette, for promoting events, including the farmers market. And that's something that we as an executive have been tasked to work with the municipality on for the next 4 years and to see that project come to fruition. The next item was continuing the beautification projects and to help create more festivals and events within the business improvement area. That's something that we believe and our membership believes that we've done well over the last 4 years, and we're very excited to continue over the next 4 years. Of course, something that Council is well aware of is finding a solution for off-street parking. and parking within our downtowns. It's something we've heard from both the businesses in Port Elgin and Southampton, and it's something that the BIA is hoping to work again with the municipality on over the next 4 years to try to find solutions to keep all types of businesses happy. Obviously working to make Port Elgin a destination. And finally, again, for the second time in a row, the strategic plan has illustrated the desire of the membership to expand the area serviced by the BIA. And that's in following with the same model that Southampton has recently employed by taking in a broader area of the community as opposed to just limiting to the very downtown core. It's an expansion project that we started several years ago, and we'd like to continue moving that forward. I think it'll help guarantee the longevity of the BIA as an organization, as well as give us the opportunity to become bigger partners with the municipality on larger capital projects and invest a bit more within our community. I guess in essence, putting our money where our mouth is. So that's in a nutshell the strategic plan. I know that all members of council have received a copy, as well as our budget and the request vis-a-vis the farmers market. So in order to expedite this, if there are any questions, I would be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Jeff. And just before I turn it over to the committee, I'll just point out that staff will be bringing a recommendation to council with regard to the questions pertaining to the farmers market, the two requests that Jeff has made on behalf of the BIA. So we will be getting a staff report and a recommendation in short order on that for committee's information. Questions or comments from the committee? Councillor Mayette.
Thank you, Vice Deputy Mayor. I do have a question and I have a comment about the farmers market. First of all, Jeff, thanks very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
And that event that's been started, I think it's just got wonderful potential. And I think anything we can do as a council, I hope we're able to help. Bring a report forward that's going to be favorable, that'll help make things work. So whether or not we're able to waive the entire fee or not, or whether there's a reduced fee, we'll have to wait and see what staff are recommending and how the discussion goes around the council table. I do. We're not quite as big as the Katy market yet, but maybe in 5 or 10 years we'll get there, right? Well, I think it has great potential. I've been a few times, and I think it's a wonderful event. The question I do have through you, Deputy Mayor, through to our Director of Public Works. Stu, have we had many complaints in the first year, concerns over the closing of Green Street? I know in the outset there was significant concern about bypassing that street and having to drive around. Were there many concerns?
Very few concerns were voiced. We had several emails at the start of the market season, but after that, very few have.
Comment I had about just some of the costs, and I know there are some public works costs to set those signs up, set up for the farmers market, and I'm just wondering whether you'd like to answer this, Jeff or Stu, but I personally find those construction type signs very gaudy looking. They're very large, and I personally think it was an overkill putting out those size of signs, but I think in light of the fact there were some concerns early in the game that we had to do what we had to do. So I get that, but my question is this: maybe perhaps this could be addressed in the staff report, but could we talk about those signs in the staff report again to the Director of Public Works, but perhaps considering removing them, making them a whole lot smaller, getting rid of them completely? And I guess maybe, Jeff, maybe you can answer this question for me. Has that been talked about at all in terms of the kind of what I think is a bit of an overkill, the size of those signs?
Yeah, there's a couple points to be made. Mr. Doyle and the BI coordinator, Laura McGinnis, spoke last year about ways that maybe we could be using the signage in a more productive way. And I guess by that, there's two parts. Reducing the amount of signage overall, but as well, why not try to have signs there that instead of people assuming that the road's closed because of construction or whatnot, why not have signs promoting what the road is closed for? I know it's a crazy idea, but that's something that we could use not only in a way. The signs could be multi-purpose. They could help direct people to off Main Street parking as well as publicize the event that's going on.
Okay.
Maybe if the BIA was to be was offered the opportunity to partner with the municipality, there's a cost-sharing arrangement that could be made. So I guess if we went to the vendors of the farmers market and said, look, we're going to invest in signs to promote what's going on and what you're doing and selling here, then there is a way to collect a fee from them that they see will directly impact their sales and be more favorable towards a fee in general. I guess it's all in the way we promote it and what we do with the money.
Okay. Well, thanks. That was my comment. Just perhaps in the staff report, Deputy Mayor, if that could be addressed.
I think we can certainly ask staff to include an opportunity for us to discuss signage as part of the staff report. Vice Deputy Mayor Huber, the actual Vice Deputy Mayor Huber.
Thanks. Deputy Mayor Charbonneau. I don't know who's preparing the staff report, but I have a request about the staff report too. Thanks, Jeff, for the presentation.
Oh, you're welcome.
Beautiful strategic plan. We should be so inspired to create one ourselves, just that sets it out the way you did. This whole topic of vendor permits, I would appreciate either as part of the staff report or as a separate staff report, a rather more involved, detailed comment about vendor permits. Who actually has to pay them? Because I've had calls in the past about Indian River fruit, and I have asked, and I've been told that they pay a permit fee. Most recently, there were signs up all over town about a rug sale. Actually, some of them are still up on the highway at the Saugeen Golf Course. Did that require a vendor permit? Because that was coming in just for a weekend's worth of business. There's a regular Tupperware sale on the highway in Southampton as well. I'm kind of curious to know who gets charged this vendor permit, and is it a one-time shot for repeat customers? How does it fit into the mix? Because it's fine to imagine waiving fees or removing fees, but we really must keep in mind that we have very few revenue sources. And revenue sources are important because they go along with the tax levy and all the other funds that we have access to through grants and provincial this and that to cover costs here. And so we can't be so quick to just say, well, we'll waive this, we'll waive that, because they do actually apply to certain activities. So I would just like to have a little more background on vendor permits to know who's paying them and how often they're paying them and what they're paying for. Having said that, I also think that it's important to, there's comments about the flea market in here. The flea market, yes, it is perhaps a different kind of market, but it's still a market. So, there is another venue in town that brings in people on a once-a-week basis that, there's a fairness and equity issue here too. And on top of that, we have businesses who are paying taxes and BIA fees and a number of other things. So I just would like, as we further the discussion about vendor permit fees, I think we need more information about who actually has been paying them the last little while so that we have a sense of, who gets charged and who doesn't. Thank you.
And I think we can certainly ask staff to give us a more fulsome understanding of how they're enforcing council's policies with regard to vendor permits as part of this report, and we'll have a greater opportunity to discuss that in short order. Councillor Grace.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. My question follows along with Vice Deputy Mayor Huber's comment about who this applies to. Clerk White's report to us this afternoon indicated that local residents would not have to pay this fee. Does that mean a Saugeen Shores resident? Linda?
The local businesses, that part is open to interpretation. The way it's being applied is businesses within the town of Saugeen Shores.
Okay. I guess this follows along with Councillor Myatt's comment about how much we spend setting up. Stu, can you tell us, do you have an idea of just whether, how much we would, or you could come back to us in the report with an idea of how much we spend setting up. I'm not saying that it's not necessarily a great investment, because I think that the farmers market is terrific, and I'm sure just from when I go, I also go shopping other places in town. So, and I think that probably happens with a lot of people.
We just got a phone call today from Jeff Cruson, who is the proprietor at Coffee Culture,
Right.
and his concern, and it's not the first one of those that we've had, but the timing was good today, and he wanted to know exactly when the farmers market was starting, because he had to schedule extra staff
Right.
on those days. So the spin-offs and the revenue potential's there, but the inclination to as soon as there are dollars coming in, to grab a chunk or a share of those sometimes outweighs the need to continue investing in something before you see the real potential, the real revenue, the real spin-offs that it has. And I think the farmers example, it's a perfect example of that kind of thing.
So, thank you. My last question is just about parking, and this is maybe something that you've discussed in the BIA. I'm sure you probably have, but how flexible do you think your membership is in terms of seasonal parking, not, maybe having in special events, closing down the streets for special events, that kind of thing, or even just saying we're going to use the street in a wider way to promote people coming downtown?
Yeah, it was one of the first considerations, I think, when we started the farmers market, or at least located it at the Coulter in the Green Street area. What we decided to do was get out ahead of that right away. And the solution, and it's worked amazingly well, is that it now encourages local residents to walk to it. But the best part and the best solution has been the shuttle that runs back and forth between the flea market at the beach and the farmers market downtown. So it joins them down that natural corridor, which Green Street is,
Right.
and opens up hundreds of more parking spaces at the beach. So families and couples and folks are choosing to drive into town, park at the beach, ride the shuttle up to the market, enjoy both markets, and really see how they complement one another, and then ride the shuttle back to the beach and spend the day with their family in the water or on the sand. And so what we've done is we've encouraged the visitor and the local resident to start spending time and money in town, instead of popping in, hitting the market like people do at Katy for 10 or 15. But now we've turned what could be an hour or two experience into an entire day of eating and shopping and enjoying Port Elgin. And I think that's the ultimate goal that we laid out for ourselves when we started this. So that's kind of the way we handled
And if
that.
you do other festivals or whatever,
That's the same kind of model
idea.
that we're going to, absolutely.
Great.
Absolutely. So,
Okay,
yeah,
thanks.
You're welcome.
You've raised a couple of good questions there, Councillor Grace, and I know that staff has recorded them and will be answering them as part of their report when it comes. Any other questions or comments on this deputation? Councillor Rich.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Charbonneau. Thanks for the presentation, Jeff. You said the need for additional parking. How much more parking do you think you need? No, I know it's a tough question, but you think, okay, well, if we had this area, like, do you need 100 more spots? Do you need 50 more
I'm
spots?
going to...
you know what I mean?
What's the right answer?
I don't know.
I think the key when looking at parking is an issue. It's not been a year since a petition came here from a number of residents and downtown businesses saying that, yes, parking is an issue. Absolutely. Everyone's going to say that. My opinion on this is different at sometimes, but what I think we need to start looking at is much like we did for the farmers market. Before we throw something new out there, anticipate what complications, i.e. parking, might come up with a solution for them first, and that's why we haven't had one comment since this market has come to the area by a downtown business concerned with the loss of parking spaces on Green Street or around, in the alley or anything. That hasn't happened because we dealt with it beforehand. So if we're going to do things and implement plans and ideas, great. I think we can probably figure out solutions, but let's find the solution and anticipate the problems and get ahead of them First, off Main Street parking, public transportation, using parking that isn't typically in the downtown area box, and getting people from where their vehicles are to where they need to spend money, which is what we're supposed to be doing as a BIA. So I think that model can work. We just need to get out in front of it and anticipate before we decide things, and that's why the farmers market and parking haven't been an issue. So if we can replicate that success on a broader scale, then we're off to the races. It doesn't have to be complicated.
Anything further? I just want to say, Jeff, I took my sons on Easter weekend down to Coulter Parkette to see the camels and all the other animals that were down there. And on that day, there were, I don't know, how would you quantify it? Maybe dozens, but potentially 100 people down there, young kids with their parents. And you couldn't get a seat in a coffee shop, and they were walking up and down those streets. They were downtown on a Saturday on a long weekend, which is kind of what everybody wants to do anyway if there's something happening.
Right.
And you guys made something happen, and so they showed up. And you're making something happen with the farmers market every Wednesday in the summertime, and all that points to the fact that this space, this programmable space in downtown Port Elgin, Coulter Parkette, that you guys have identified through your strategic plan as being a critical venture for you guys over the next 4 years, it all demonstrates the fact that that's a great space, and we should get more stuff happening in that space and build the space so that more stuff can happen there. And the more that happens, there'll be more feet on the street and more shopping going on in those stores. And if there's more shopping going on in the stores that are already there, more stores will come in and fill the places that are empty. And stores that pay higher lease rates will come in and take over the ones that pay lower lease rates. This isn't rocket science. No. It's pretty simple stuff. But there's a few things that we can do in partnership with the BIA, I think, to enhance that, and they don't have to be very expensive. They can just be sort of creative, a creative use of a space, like the creative use of Coulter Parkette. So I think it's great the direction you guys are heading, and I guess I'm hoping to see more programming in Coulter and across the downtown over the coming months. And I know you guys are going to provide it, and hopefully we can work on some of these other issues around that and get that space, improve that space on an ongoing basis for your use and for the use of all the public. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much.
And the next deputation is Roger Cook, the manager of Saugeen Mobility and Regional Transit. Welcome, Roger.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Good evening, everyone. I'll try to keep it short. 2014 was a very busy and challenging year for SMART. Without warning, individual ridership increased by more than 60%. Which created some serious operational strains. Workload for office staff increased, several drivers were hired, and 6 vehicles were added. Additionally, the province changed the timing of the dedicated gas tax for transit program from October to April to match its fiscal year. This delayed the gas tax funding for the second half of the year, which meant that where about $420,000 would have been received in 2014, only about $205,000 actually was received. Essentially, the MTO ran a half program in 2014. This delay, along with the sudden growth and its attendant costs, created a serious cash flow situation at SMART and resulted in the near depletion of the gas tax reserve account. On November 28th, the directors of SMART voted to increase individual user fees from $2 plus 30 cents per kilometer with a $5 minimum to $2 plus 50 cents per kilometer with a $7.50 minimum. SMART's individual user fees are among the highest public transit user fees in the province. Money has since flowed from last year to the end of March. We received about $430,000. In 2013, SMART, however, was eligible to receive just over $607,000 based on its 2013 population and ridership data, leaving just over $177,000 on the table. MTO funding under the gas tax for transit program is subject to a cap of 75% of local revenue, municipal funding, user fees, donations, etc. In 2013, SMART was eligible for almost $463,000, but received just under $347,000, leaving about $116,000 on the table. In 2015-16, payment should be just about $510,000 based on 2014 local revenue of just under $680,000. Capturing full MTO funding is critical to the financial stability and continued success of SMART, but will require an increase in local funding, averaging about $8 per household per year. SMART finished 2014 with a total ride count of 30,287, up just under 44%. Individual ridership was up just under 64%. Our gross operating deficit was $29.82 per ride compared to $29.30 per ride in 2013. This is the difference between our operational expenses and our user fees. This deficit then is funded through municipal contributions, donations, and the MTO gas tax for transit funding program. Currently, Saugeen Shores has 256 registered clients, including 13 at Elgin Lodge and 72 at Southampton Care. This represents approximately 2.3% of Saugeen Shores' population of 11,207. Excuse me. In 2013, clients from Saugeen Shores took 2,108 rides. This was up 178% from 2012. Saugeen Shores' ridership in 2014 was up 134% to 4,934 rides. Individual ridership totaled 4,730, up 155%. Group rides totaled 204 compared to 258. SMART's 2015 local revenue is expected to be about $790,000, of which $536,000 is to be provided by the 8 partner municipalities, $250,000 by user fees, and about $4,000 through donations and other miscellaneous revenue sources. This amount of local revenue should produce MTO funding of about $592,000 in 2016-17. Operational expenses are expected to be about $1.15 million. The net operating deficit will be fully funded through the gas tax reserve account. Saugeen Shores' share of the 2015 municipal contribution is $86,929.49, up from $15,331.86 in 2014. Saugeen Shores' share increased by about 29.5% to 16.21 from 12.52. In 2013, Saugeen Shores' share was 7.39% and created a contribution of $27,725.91. Saugeen Shores' contribution for 2015 is up 69.35% over 2014, primarily due to 2 factors. One, the overall municipal contribution is up just under 31%, and 2, Saugeen Shores' share increased by about 29.5%. At $86,929, Saugeen Shores' 2015 contribution represents well under 1% of local taxation. For local taxpayers, SMART represents a tremendous value when compared to other specialized public transit services. SMART serves a population of more than 70,000, which makes it one of 34 services in Ontario serving populations greater than 50,000. In 2013, these 34 services had operational expenses of nearly $170,000 per vehicle, while SMART had operational expenses of less than $45,000 per vehicle. On average, these 34 services receive municipal funding for more than 85% of their operational expenses. SMART received about 45%, and in 2014 received less than 40%. In 2013, the City of Owen Sound spent more than $175,000 to operate a single specialized vehicle. For those who use and depend on SMART, this is a service that is highly valued. The service you provide through SMART helps keep the most vulnerable members of your community independent, mobile, and involved. Many studies have shown a direct link between mobility and good health, both physical and mental. The aging population in rural areas is going to mean increased demand for the service that SMART provides.
Thank you, Roger. Are there questions or comments from the committee? Vice Deputy Mayor Huber.
Thank you. Your reports mentions about how you're mandated not to refuse service to a client. Can you just indicate how one becomes a client?
Well, you fill out a client registration form, and that gives us the information regarding your mobility challenges. And if there's any questions about that, then I follow up with the information. And occasionally, a doctor's note is required to obtain service. So it's fairly well restricted.
Councillor Grace.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Thanks, Roger. I just wanted to say that I think it is a very important service. I have several friends who use it frequently, who need to use it because of mobility problems, and they have commented on the extraordinary level of graciousness and helpfulness of the people providing the service. So,
wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you. Growth in Saugeen Shores has been great in the last 3 years, and we knew there was a significant demand here, and it's come along really well. We still, we get new clients every week, and it's been gratifying.
Councillor Mike Myatt.
Thank you, Vice Deputy Mayor. Or Deputy Mayor, I should say. Sorry, Luke. Whoa. That wasn't intentional. Mine pertains to the cost, and I just, first of all, taking a look at our ridership from 2,100 in 2013 to probably well over 5,000 in 2015 is a wonderful story, and I think we're filling a need, and I think that's tremendous, and the group that's worked on this deserve a whole lot of credit. Our costs have gone from 27,000 in 2013 to about, I guess, $86,000 in 2015. My question, I guess, through you to our CAO, perhaps, if I could, Larry, that $86,000 cost, is there a threshold there? Are we reaching a point where, it's gone up, a fair amount over the last 3 years, which is a positive thing in the sense the ridership's up. But I'm just wondering, have we reached a point where that cost is going to continue to escalate? Can we predict?
Through you, there's actually a couple of numbers in here I found interesting. One is, I think the work that the committee did a few years ago indicated that the service would generally provide service to 2 to 3% of our population, and we're now in between 2 to 3% of our population, so that tells me that we're kind of reaching out to what theoretically is the whole client base. So that itself tells me that the cost should level off, and I believe in speaking to Roger previously, the indications are that it ramps up over the first 3 years or so. So I think we're looking for a leveling off in the future.
Further questions or comments? Yeah, Councillor Dave Myatt.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Charbonneau, and through you. Roger, reading your report also, it occurs to me that the mathematical problem you have is that you have to raise 25% through ridership and municipal contributions in order to access the full gas tax money available. Is that kind of the gist of the story that I heard?
No, and it gets a little complicated. There's a lot of moving pieces. In 2005, I believe it was, the Ministry of Transportation took all transit services in the province, took their expenditures from, I believe it was 2001 to 2003, averaged them out. And then for each transit system, it created what's called a baseline. That baseline must be exceeded every year with your local revenue, which is your municipal funding, user fees, donations, in order to have access to the gas tax account. So,
any access?
Pardon me?
Any access to the gas tax account?
Any access. That's correct. If you don't exceed that baseline,
the threshold, yeah, okay,
you don't get any access. Which means if you have a deficit, then it falls back on the municipalities to cover the deficit. If you need new equipment, it falls back on the municipalities. That's the carrot and the stick of the gas tax funding through the province. We're not in that position. We're exceeding our baseline healthily every year. We don't have that worry. Some systems have. I saw a province lock the doors. A system locked their doors a few years ago because they could not exceed their baseline. Mm-hmm. Therefore, they couldn't get access to the gas tax funding. and they got into what I called a death spiral, and they just locked the doors. They had $350,000 sitting in the account, and they couldn't get access to it.
I'm just trying to get my head around this money left on the table terms that you used in there.
Okay, the Ministry of Transportation, when they do their gas tax funding calculation every year, they make two calculations. One is they take every transit system in the province and they put in their population and their ridership. And they create a big spreadsheet, and everybody has a share of that funding. And then they
prorated share, yeah. Okay.
And then they apply that share to the overall amount of money that the gas tax funding is. And then the second calculation is they take your local revenue and they take 75% of it. And you get the lower of those two numbers.
Okay.
So our problem is our local revenue isn't high enough. So when they're multiplying our local revenue, like we could be eligible for $1 million in funding in a year, but if our local revenue is only $500,000, 75% of that is $375. That's all we're getting, no matter what you're eligible for.
Right. So that's kind of what I understood. So is the answer then to increase your local revenue
The answer
through
is
register fees?
The answer is to increase local revenue, whether it's through municipal contributions or user fees or donations or
is there any point in petitioning the higher levels of government to revisit that percentage, that sort of prorated 75%?
I have had a discussion with my contacts at the Ministry of Transportation in the transit funding section, and they're hoping to do a complete review of the program in the next year or so.
Okay.
They are open to the idea that what I presented to them was that small services in rural areas, population density is the big factor. I think it's a big factor in everything municipalities do. Population density is a big problem. A small urban, an urban municipality, City of London, Owen Sound, whatever, they have some operational efficiencies that a rural municipality doesn't have. And so that is our problem in a transit system. We're serving a large geographic area. I think we average 19 residents per square kilometer. So that's a long way below Toronto. So we don't get those operating efficiencies.
That's what kind of occurs to me is that a one size fits all solution doesn't necessarily work when you're comparing us to a large urban area transit system, because they can tag on their mobility assisted transit to their larger transit system. So we don't have that advantage. So I would encourage you, when the time comes to, if they're going to do a major overhaul, and you have some ideas as to how you'd like to see that outcome play out, then to come back to us and let us know if we could write you a letter of support.
I think any time a municipality wishes to write a letter to the Minister of Transportation in support of small transit systems is probably welcome anytime. The idea that I had for them was there seems to be a natural break at 100 residents per square kilometer. And my suggestion was those that are below that, give them all the money they're eligible for, regardless of their 75%, because it's difficult to fund a transit system in rural areas. The costs are high, and the dollar effect at the province would be relatively minimal, given that the small systems, the large number of dollars go to Toronto, Ottawa, Hamilton, the larger urban centers. So I think it's workable. It depends on getting it structured properly.
Further questions, comments? I think, and that's the key thing is changing the formula, because I mean the alternative, just the concept that just raising the municipal contribution makes sense is a little confusing, because you're going to collect a bunch more money from us, collect a bunch more money from the province, but why to spend on what, right? I think the key thing is, and you can't. It's not as though you could offset user fees with municipal dollars, because you'd end up in the same place, right? I mean that balance doesn't work to get your additional money from the MTO, right? So the key issue is not really raising the municipal contribution so much as it is advocating or lobbying to change the way the formula works, perhaps in the manner that you mentioned there. I think that's the concept that you'd be looking for, because then you could use that money to lower the rates that you're charging to the users in the end, and that would be a net benefit to the users. So I mean, I'd encourage you to look at that route. Yeah, I think. Thank you very much for your deputy.
We're certainly interested in it, that's for sure.
Good. Well, we appreciate that, and Mayor Smith is our representative on SMART, and I'm sure he'll let you know what we think on an ongoing basis.
Very good.
Thanks, Roger.
Thank you.
All right, and our final deputation this evening is Victoria Serta and Jerry Lambert from Saugeen. Welcome, Victoria and Jerry.
I guess Jerry will join me as he has time. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. It's nice to see Council again, and thanks to the media and the staff for being here too. I get to present pictures of Stu and other staff members, as well as lots of people around the community. So I'm really happy to be here on behalf of Saugeen for the Environment and Trees for Saugeen, which is the subcommittee of Saugeen. I kind of like to say that my little thing is planting big trees, because that's really what the heart of what we do here in Saugeen Shores is. So I just wanted to give a little background because it's a new council. We haven't presented before to the majority of the people here. And I just wanted to make sure that everybody's coming and understanding the history of how we got here and how we grew. So there's been a lot of number crunching over the last week or so that I haven't done previously. And so there's actually a few figures that I came out with since I put together the deputation that I'll tell you at the end that are pretty exciting. But anyway, back in 2009, we passed, the council at the time passed having an environment committee, and Diane was on there and Luke. And of course our mayor was there as well. And so that ad hoc committee had a mandate to bring 10 things back to the council of actions that could be done in the community that would be effective. And we had a very good discussion coming with this, and each of these came with its own plan from the subcommittee members of the committee. And just so you know, the 8 out of the 10 that were actionable by the committee members themselves were all done and very effective, in my opinion. So I just wanted to let you know that the top 8 on there were all done. So it was a very effective committee to have of council at the time. Out of that, when the ad hoc committee disbanded, we realized we needed something to carry on the work of the committee. So we formed a not-for-profit corporation, Saugeen for the Environment, in March of 2010. And Saugeen over the years has worked on a lot of different things, both with the staff and within the community, including things like the rain barrels and community gardens, composting. The calendar that comes out was all formed from that environment committee originally. So a lot of good work has happened based out of that work. Back in 2010, it was when Bill Jones was still the Director of Public Works. We had a maple tree sale where half the money came from Maple Leafs Forever and half of the price was paid for by the public. And we also did some seedlings plantings along Mill Creek, and as well as a number of streams in 3 different locations around the municipality in partnership with a high school and the Pine River Watershed Initiative and the Bruce Resource Stewardship Network. So we kind of got together and started trying to do some work. So all of that year's worth, that 900 trees were all planted at no cost in the municipality at all. So we started out small, tried to make it a bite-sized chunk that we could take. And then we realized that there was a lot of interest in tree planting in general, and also particularly in urban tree planting, because that was something that basically no one in the whole region was doing. There was a lot of ecosystem restoration that was happening in the region, but nobody was promoting planting within municipalities, like in the urban areas and downtowns and along people's properties, boulevards, that type of thing. So we formed a group. We got together a bunch of committee members that represented all of the various environmental groups in the region that were working on these, and we still keep everybody informed with what we're doing and collaborate every year on tree planting initiatives. So in 2011, we did the 700 trees, and we raised $9,000 in cash. And it was primarily through a call that we put out to the community asking for money to come in, which was a really great response. It made us, it showed us that the community really supported the direction of what we were doing. That year we got $1,000 from Community Services because we were planting on parkland. And the Nuclear Waste Management Organization bought 10 of the surplus big maple trees that are in the Robertson Park. You'll see them now in the autumn. They're autumn blaze maples. They're a beautiful pinky orange color and have a beautiful show. So in 2012, we stepped up our game. We did a lot more grant writing, and we raised it up to over $47,000 worth of cash that we brought in. And this year, just so you know, we did calculations like by the hour. We really wanted to know exactly how much time we were spending, exactly how much all of the in-kind services were that were being provided, partially because we got a TD Greenstreet's grant and it looks good to them if we did that kind of calculation. So that number for the in-kind is like, it's not to the dollar. I could give you the dollar amount and look it up, but I can tell you exactly how much that is, and it was about $139,000 in kind in that 1 year. So in that 1 year, even though it was $47,000 in cash, we raised, it was basically a program worth $186,000 for almost 2,000 trees. And if you look at the municipal funding at the bottom, there's only $5,000 actually cash put in from the council, and the tree sale itself raised $2,420 back. So it was obviously a very good type of program for the amount of money that was being put in by the municipality. And you'll see this trend is going on. So in 2013, we raised $53,000 in cash, another $130,000 in value, so $183,000 for both of those together. We planted over 1,700 trees, and the staff put in a little bit more money in their budgets that year, which was kindly passed by the council. So it was a little over $6,000 they put in, and we raised almost $6,000 in the tree sale that year. So it was becoming more popular and getting better. So we move on to 2014. We got $73,000 in cash, about $140,000 in value. That year, it actually took a little less time because we knew what we were doing. We didn't have to spend as much time in the planning side. We could do more in the implementation. So up to $213,000 with the cash and in kind, 1,800 trees, and even more money was being added in. In particular, if you're wondering with Community Services why they put more money in, Saugeen Green decided that they wanted to kind of take a more major role, so we took on helping out with Lakeridge Park, the seniors park behind the Super 8 motel. So it was taking a lot more time and effort for fundraising and doing things like berms, putting in a watering system, that kind of thing. So, and we also raised a lot more money in the tree sale that year. You know, it's been going really well. These are the list of all of the organizations that we partner with. So there's over 30 of them that we regularly keep in contact with and, you know, talk to them about what's going on. And for this year, it's jumped up even more to where we will have raised by the end of this year $120,000 in cash, expecting another $122,000 in kind. And part of that is, again, that we've been doing our planning a lot more, but also Tracy and Jerry and I have been working on making this tree sale program a national program, and we're not taking that time into consideration when we're doing the numbers for Saugeen Green. So we're trying to make this a pilot program, but it's not part of any of the numbers in here. So that's what's taking more of our time, our in-kind time this year. So in this year, we're expecting to plant over 3,400 trees. And the funding, again, there's $10,000 was in the budget for Lakeridge. So if you look at it, it's really $7,500 from the council for tree planting, and $9,000 is what we're expecting back from the tree sale. Just briefly before I get Jerry up here, there's a couple other things I just wanted to mention. If you consider the 600 large trees that we've planted, you can it's more than 60,000 kilograms of carbon dioxide that are stored at the planting. So it's a very significant climate change initiative as well. particularly, because if in the middle here, you'll see that when the residents are looking after the trees, the success rate is a lot higher. It's usually 95% or more when you plant in urban settings. And so it means you're not going to have fire or disease. If there's a drought, somebody will water the tree, right? So it's a lot safer from a carbon sequestration standpoint. So it's a lot a better way of storing carbon than almost anything else that anybody can do. Trees are amazing at that. So, and this is another calculation that I was running, that of the $155,000 on cash that we spent, if you take the TD Economics report that they did in Toronto, and it was urban trees, so it should be very similar to here. They have a very similar forest cover percentage as we do here too. The value of the cash contributions alone would be over $209,000. So you can ask me later if you're not understanding what the meaning of this. Some of these are. I know it's a lot of numbers to throw at you. I also wanted to mention that we've had a number of multi-year funders that have been really, really supportive. For instance, Bruce Power has had the biggest donation of over the years. They've given us over $61,000, which is extremely significant, and we're very grateful for. We have a great working relationship with them, and we provide regional funding with that money. So it's not just for Saugeen Shores; it's also for Kincardine and Saugeen First Nation, as well as some ends up going into Erin Elderslie as well. And you can see that we raised money like that, not we raised money, but Public Works gave in a certain amount in community services. We considered the Rail Trail Association's money in because it's kind of municipal in its own way. There's some money from the Community Foundation Grey Bruce and the Saugeen Shores Community Fund. And both Kincardine and Saugeen First Nation also put their own money in to the projects. Saugeen Green also raised money through the OMAFRA Rural Economic Development Program this year for the Forest Garden at Saugeen First Nation. So it's a grant that we're still administering until the end of December this year. So if you look at it, again, I'm a number cruncher, so out of the $73,000 that was spent by the local governments, they got over $209,000 of community value in the forest maintenance, over $536,000 of in-kind value, and an additional $175,000 raised, and the $60,000 greenhouse gas emissions reductions. So that is my part. I'm going to ask Jerry to come up, but I wanted to tell you one other calculation that I did in the middle, because I only had time to do a certain amount when I was preparing this. If you actually include, there's a way of calculating the urban community value, and it's a studies-based way of finding out. Like, so it increases when you do tree planting, it increases property value, and it helps our health. It's easier to breathe. There's more moisture in the air. They actually did a calculation for that, and if you value that community value for only the urban trees that we put in, the whole program that we've run would be worth over $1 million of what we've done in 5 years. And if you calculate the replacement value just for the trees that we put in, so not the trees that exist in the town, but if we were to replace only the trees that we put in, it would be over $1.4 million that would have to be spent in order to replace them. So I just wanted to let you know the numbers to show that we're getting a lot of good value with the partnerships in the community, and we're really grateful for the ongoing support from the council and the staff for working so well with us. So now it's Jerry gets to show you all the pretty pictures.
Well, I could say something about that. Council, town staff. So I'm Jerry Lambert, and I love trees, and I can talk about trees for hours. So hope we're not going anywhere in a hurry. I got involved with these two women, or dragged into it. I always had a love for trees. I got it from my grandfather. So when you get into community service, as everyone here is, you start getting appreciation for what other people do. So I'm seeing what they're doing, and I do like trees, so I took that lead, and I like the trees for Saugeen part of it. So this picture right here, I'm going to just try and talk to the pictures we have as quickly and move through them. But this is right across from my house. So I ran out of room to plant trees in my own property. And along came this, and so I was putting trees down this concession before we were given money to do any of it. my neighbor worked for the municipality in Kincardine and said when they took all the trees down there, they don't have the money to replace it. And that's true. Municipalities don't have money to put back in parks. When we first raised money, I went to people that I knew lived around parks and asked them to donate to me, and I would get a tree in that park. And it's an easy working relationship we have with the town staff that makes that possible. And so we're off and running. So obviously the tree at the end, that was there before, but all the others are planted by us. And that's looking down the other way. Obviously the one large tree in the forefront and one way down is planted by our group. My next neighbor then went out and bought trees right after that, and he's gotten all red maples after that last red tree. So you start to influence your friends and neighbors. This is the Gore Drain. That's not far from my house either that I had an interest in. And so this is our first foray onto the Saugeen Rail Trail, which Jerry is here. Another great partnership we developed. And so we've been going down the Gore Drain all those years, doing 30 trees each year, going on the way down each year. This is the results of the TD Green Streets grant, which our girls worked very hard on. And again, that's in cooperation with the town staff, Saugeen Rail Trail, everyone. Fundraising always is a problem, and the Winterhawks, Victoria being an avid fan, I talked them into sponsoring. This is one of our first tree sales, and when we started the tree sale, we got our involvement with youth in the neighborhood with the Scouts. So the Scouts came out, and that is in Southampton in conjunction with the Dark Knights. No, I'm thinking about the Lights Out. Yeah. So anyway, we've had the youth, the Cubs involved with us every year, and they plant trees where people aren't able to. We put on speakers through our grant money from TD Green Streets. When we got people locally, we got the Saugeen Valley to come and talk about tree trimming. This is where I first met Bill O'Keefe. He gave a talk on apple trees, and that further opens up your avenues of potential in the community. Penetang Gore, they've been planting trees on the other side of Kincardine forever. Okay. Wismer Desert Apple. So, Bill O'Keefe, he's out on Mount Hope. Ran into him. He is a history buff. He's known all over the world for his interest in apple trees. Amazing man. He's what he's done to his own farm. When I met him, he was doing not only the apples, he was doing his own maple syrup, his own honey. But it's his claim to fame is the apple trees. He bought a book from the United States. It was 2 volumes, hardcover, 1902. And in that book was listed the Wismer Desert Apple. So the bar, the Wismer, was a nursery for a doctor's office, and before that it was a nurseryman. And that nurseryman had an apple back in 1897 that was listed in this book, and Bill took that thread and found the tree and brought it back to Port Elgin. We've since put 2 on the rail trail just down from the rail station. Jerry helped last fall. We had 10 in our garden to get them to mature, and we put them in several locations through the community. So, as I said, once you start doing things, you start finding people doing great things for our community. Saugeen First Nation, that was an experience for me. Victoria has a lot of connections with the First Nation. It was my first time. These are bare root trees, and the offer went out for 100 trees to plant in their village. They invited us out for breakfast, coffee, had a barbecue after. They put it out to the community to be involved, and they got out approximately 80 people, elders, kids, everything. It was one of those things that you get involved with, and it is quite rewarding seeing that. We jump on every opportunity we have. Canon photo contest. This is concession 2. The Lamont family lives on it, and those large trees in the background, they're planted in 1891 in around there by Lamont's great-grandfather through a provincial grant. So we knew the trees were dying, and I hooked up with the Lamonts and got funding from them. We provided funding, and we put, I believe, 33 sugar maple trees back down the concession through the various years. This is all in concession 2. We go out and get in-kind donations, and this is one. This is Jason Van Giel and his son providing. That was the nearest tractor, North Bruce. So you hit on all your people you know through my hockey team. I got Jason to come down and plant the trees. The barn you can see in the background, that is Swass. Bernard Swass. He was helping us that day planting the trees, and he came by and said, "Is that the windmill fella?" And I thought, here we go. It's not going to go well. And he said, "That barn over there there was a windmill installed on it, and it was the first one in the area." So he told me, I was really curious about it, and he was telling Jason that it was the largest one in the area, and it came down on the windstorm in 1915, or it didn't come down in the storm of 1913. Jordan Swass climbed up it and held it into the wind. All the other windmills in the area that were fixed were taken down in the storm, and theirs survived. He had a photo of it. He led me to the Bruce County Museum, and I've got one to present to Jason for helping us that day. He wasn't the first windmill in town. There's all the Lamonts and the town staff. That's Kent Lamont on your far left. There's 4 generations of Lamont came out that day to help us with the planting. Bernard Swass is second in from the left there. As Victoria said, we participate in the Kincardine municipality. That is in Tiverton at their ball diamonds. 4 large trees went in there. This is also in Kincardine in the municipality. They went large trees and a mixture of small trees. Now we get back to Saugeen, and this is Halliwell Soccer Park. We planted trees on both sides of the field now, and we just don't go helter-skelter. We do work with the town. They slow us down a bit, but it's great working with them. They have a 5-year plan. We're following their 5-year plan and discuss with them every year where we're going to go. Davy Park, our tree supplier, has always been good to us. That particular tree died, and we've replaced it since then. This is the first park I went into. That fellow in the yellow shirt was the first guy to donate money to us. He bought 2 trees to go into that park. He's lived on it, he said, for 15 years and never been a tree installed in it. It's my brother-in-law up front and members of my hockey team helping out every time. That's George Marion. Everyone knows where that is, Southampton, beside Tim's. Jubilee Park. These are the large Arlen blades that went in, providing shade for the ballpark. There's 2 on that side between the play equipment. There's another story. This is my neighbor down the street, Carson's. When we started, our first load of trees were 32 large caliber trees, and I went to my neighbor and asked him if he would supply transportation. So he's been supplying transportation free of charge to us ever since we've gotten into this. That's where our in-kind value comes from, is community support and businesses like his. And that's Roger with the tractor unloading. TD Greenstreet's representative beside Victoria planting the tree. And this is in Jubilee. There's, I believe there's 4 trees, large sugar maples behind the fire hall. Saugeen Rail Trail Association. This is where we've had a great working relationship. See you both in the picture there. Robertson Park, as Victoria alluded to earlier, Kevin Orr was one of our first people to pick up and pay for 10 large trees for that park. There's them in the fall, going down that side of the path. We're talking to Christian Schreider. We're going down the other side of the walkway this year. Saugeen District Secondary School, we did the larger trees around the bleachers. That was interesting working with the students. The questions they ask, and they're just want to help and learn. Back on the rail trail. This is in the Memorial Gardens. On Railway Street. Those trees, every spring, they look a little dried out by windburn, but they're coming along. River Street, this is just down from the rail station. Going north, I guess it is, Jerry? Everest Nurseries. Rail Trail is smart. When we get trees, we use them to bring them and drop them off. Everest, anytime when I was getting into planting trees, he was asking me where all the trees were going, and I said, I'm great now, I'm going down a concession. And he said, anytime you're doing anything in a public space, I'll give you a very good discount. When that started, the recession was on, trees were being dumped into Canada, and he had a large surplus of trees, so we took advantage of that, and results are large trees in the community. Tree prices have gone up. There's a demand in Ontario, but he's still treating us very well. So this is the easiest way to plant. The town comes along, digs a hole, gets the locates, and the company comes, and we plant in, we backfill, and we're almost done.
Hey, Jerry, just because I love Saugeen so much, I let you guys go on to 25 minutes,
okay,
which is a break from my earlier rule. But so if you could just wrap it up for us, that would be appreciated.
This is down where most of the traffic accidents happen, by Charbonneau's. I wanted to get that in.
Well, now I feel bad.
Push me, I'll push you. No. This was another planting last fall. The trees are doing great. Nodwell Park is another success story. We got in there, and then they had the Run for Life that year, and it was just in time for that. As you see, we put a lot of trees in here, and that's what it looks like after the planting. And those trees are going to really make the park. Now we're in Perkins Park. Again, we supported by the Rotary Club. And you see this was our last planting, the snow on the ground. And again, doing it easier way. Cameron Park, the town bought 10 sugar maples. And that's what we're working on now. That's a big commitment of ours, and it's really transforming that park. All our First Nations, this is where we're been hitting trees in Saugeen and about. Financial questions you can ask Victoria. Tree sale, St. Andrew's Juice, and there's the youth group. 2 arborists volunteer their help that day. The town staff volunteer their time. You see the assortment of vehicles that come, and the scouts did a great job. They went got a tree, came here, showed them how to plant it, how to move it around, and away they go. And this is just the yard's work and what it looks like on sale day. So the tree sale is on right now. Hope everyone's purchased a tree. Anyone not purchase a tree? Okay, that'll wrap it up. Thank you. Thanks for your support. We'll probably keep on doing it somewhere.
Thank you very much, Jerry, and thank you, Victoria. I guess I'll just ask, is there any questions from the committee? Yeah, Councillor Matheson.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Jerry, Victoria, and Tracy, I'd like to say congratulations and well done for the work that you and your organization has been doing over the last few years. Please keep it up. You can never have enough trees in the community. It just beautifies it, and well done. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Further questions? Vice Deputy Mayor Huber. I
just want to echo what Councillor Matheson said, and Victoria knows that she was a colleague around the table for a while, and you know, you were missed when you weren't back here, but you've done a lot of other things in the community, and Tracy's sitting at the back, she does too. What was really particularly interesting to see was you bringing back the environmental ad hoc committees, top 10, and I had forgotten that we really had realized 8 of them, so that was one of the real showcases during that term when you were on council with us, so thank you for that.
Further questions or comments? I just want to say I just did the quick figuring on your numbers that you presented in terms of the total numbers of trees planted since 2011, and I came up to, by the end of this year, that you'll nearly have planted 10,000 trees, which I mean is fantastic. It's tremendous, and we really thank you for your work. And I know that the town of Saugeen Shores is going to be supportive, however we can in the future, for you to keep going. So thank you very much.
Thanks for your patience.
Thank you.
The best thing about it, they're growing. We haven't had too many failures with the drought years and everything, thanks to the town staff.
Thanks. Okay, the clerk tells me that when these when we have this much work ahead of us, that it might be a good idea for us to take a break at this juncture. So how about we stand recessed for 10 minutes? 5 minutes? Is 5 minutes enough? How about 5 minutes, then we'll reconvene at 9 o'clock. Call back to order this committee of the whole meeting. Next item on the agenda is staff report, and it's from the Director of Finance. Take it away, Kate.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is an annual report we do every year to approve the non-union wage increases. To ensure that the wages for non-union employees of the town of Saugeen Shores remain competitive, historically this group of employees has been granted an annual compensation increase that takes into consideration negotiated increases awarded to municipal union and police employees, the County of Bruce, and the annual CPI index. The relevant 2015 increases for each of these groups is summarized in the report and the comparators reference. It is recommended that the town of Saugeen Shores non-union employees, Police Service Board, and Planning Advisory Committee be granted a 1.75% increase, phased in with 0.75 effective January 1st and an additional 1% effective July 1st, 2015. There are no proposed changes to the non-union benefit plan. It is further recommended that the authorizing bylaw to implement the 2015 increase for all affected employees be prepared. The financial impact of the report, the annualized impact of the phased-in increase of 25% results in an actual annual increase of 1.5%, which will have an estimated cost of $31,250. Amount has been accounted for. The impact of the increase on council remuneration is estimated to be around $2,000. Council will recall that the 2015 operating budget was made constant over 2014. However, I'm optimistic that the overall levy and the increase as it pertains to other boards and committees is not significant and is not expected to impact the 2015 budget.
Thank you, Kate. I have a recommendation that non-union employees, members of council, Police Service Board, and Planning Advisory Committee be granted a wage increase of 1.75% phased in as 0.75% effective January 1, 2015, and an additional 1% effective July 1, 2015, and that the authorizing bylaw be prepared for council's consideration. Questions or comments to the recommendation? Councillor Mike Myatt.
The only comment I have, and I you know, the Ontario Consumer Price Index this past 12 months, set in 2014, is 2.0%. And I only say that because, I mean, this equates to about a 1.25, which is, by the way, the lowest increase in Bruce County, I believe, which is fine. We're in a tough budget year, and I get that. But I just wanted to, you know, I guess, brief counsel with my thinking in terms of, you know, the Ontario Consumer Price Index 2.0%. We're not maintaining rate of inflation. It is a tough budget year. I get that, but I hope there's a longer discussion than we had at budget time this past December about the increase that we're passing on to staff.
Further questions? Vice Deputy Mayor Huber.
Thank you. I would welcome a greater discussion too. It's not completely just about wage levels. You know, there's a number of other factors that play into compensation packages, and so you know, it's you know, this might appear to be less than the consumer price index, but there are other elements of the benefit package that, you know, other people are not entitled to. So it's a package deal. And, you know, as an example, for, you know, municipal offices were closed Easter Monday. It's not a stat holiday. So, you know, there's a number of things that come together, but I would welcome a greater discussion in the future too about, and maybe we're going to get it with the operational review. Who knows? Thank you.
Further questions? I think the important thing to note is that is not so much the consumer price index as the increase that IUOE 793 is receiving is 1.75%, which is where we found the 1.75%. The reasonable comparator is the town of Saugeen Shores, and that's the increase that, if that's the increase our outside workers are getting, then I think that that's the increase that we should get. Anyway, that's just my thinking. Further questions or comments? All in favor? Next is a staff report on the 2014 year-end surplus, and that's going to be from the Director of Finance as well. Take it away, Kate.
Thanks again. This report summarizes our financial results of the year ended December 31st, 2014. While we are confident that all transactions have been accounted for, the financial audit is currently underway, so there is a possibility that there will be some recommended adjustments that come after this report. The final sign-off from the auditors on the financial statements is anticipated to be received at the end of May. I will point out, though, that this report from the auditors in May will focus on the balance sheet and PSAB surplus. Tonight's report is really our opportunity to discuss operations in terms of the budget and the actual resulting surplus. On November 10th, 2014, staff presented a report summarizing the town's operations and preliminary capital spending for the first 9 months of the year and forecasted the impact on the year-end deficit. At that time, it was estimated that the town was heading towards a rate-funded deficit of approximately $500,000, which would be offset by unbudgeted supplemental taxation of approximately $3,000, resulting in a net deficit of $200,000, funded from alternate sources. The actual financial deficit that we've come to at year-end, after all transfers have been made and accounted for, is currently at $187,500. However, this is offset by supplemental taxation, an overall operating surplus position of $160,000. In addition to the operating surplus, the total surplus generated from tax-funded capital is around $8,000. Staff has recommended that the surplus be used to increase the tax stabilization reserve to its goal balance of 2% of annual tax revenue, and that the remaining balance be transferred to the future capital projects reserve. A few tables attached to this report, so I'll just walk you through some of those. The first one, Appendix A, just summarizes where we are at year-end compared to the report that was presented in November and where some of those differences are that get us from the $500,000 anticipated overage to $187,000. Weather played a factor. Winter control was not as bad as we thought at that time for the remaining. Had some better than experienced revenues, expected revenues in garbage bag tag sales by the end of the year. And then the major ones would be the police. At the time, we were anticipating significant legal costs related to the inquiry. As well with WSIB, we had received report that there would be surcharge of $60,000. However, we got a correction to that just a couple weeks ago, so that brought our overall WSIB near to surplus of $12,500. So that's what's really driving the difference there. The next table you'll recognize from the 2014 budget format or 2015 budget format, and it basically just summarizes on a departmental or service area basis the budget and the net financial results of each department. Red, it's over budget. Black number, thin budget. On the second page of that, or at the bottom, the overall surplus is just summarized as to what's driving it. So major player there is our supplemental tax revenues, fire, police were under budget, engineering and roads and cemetery, and that's offset by overages and fleet fuel. We had an emergency storm repair that was shared with Kincardine. Streetlight hydro was higher than expected. The legal fees associated with the DC appeal. Waste management, that's a net of all, and that's waste management services, so waste collection, landfill, and recycling, and that's mostly due to revenues being lower than it. Our insurance deductibles, we have a deductible of $10,000 per deductibles, including the harbor, and then the net community services, overspending around $140,000, and there was a few different players here, including the lower than expected revenues at both the harbor and the next table, Appendix C, has been provided in the past, and that just shows our capital, status of capital, and all the projects highlighted in yellow that were carried forward. So when I mentioned we have an $18,000 surplus in capital, that's for completed projects. Any tax-funded capital projects that have been carried forward to 2015, we won't know what those true surpluses are until they wrap up in the spring and summer. Appendix D is the reserve transactions, very tiny reserve transaction. It details every transaction that impacted the reserve balances at year-end. The majority of reserve transactions are driven by the budget and motions throughout the year. Also, there were several reallocation of reserve balances that only impacted the allocation of reserves and not the overall balances, so just moving things around just to ease accounting a little bit there. And these have been noted. Unbudgeted reserve transactions that ultimately have an impact on the surplus but were not previously approved are summarized in this report. This report's recommendation includes a motion from Council to approve all reserve transfers included in Appendix D as of December 31st. And this is really something that the auditors look for at year-end, of all the transactions that took place. And a full report on reserves, their funding source, their intended purpose, along with a reserve policy, is currently being prepared, and it's anticipated that we'll present that to Council at the regular Council meeting on May 11th. The table within the report just summarizes what those reserve transfers are. I won't go through any of them, but if you want and have any questions, I can certainly answer those for you. And then the final item is Appendix E. This is really a housekeeping item. Annually, I am required to present to you the development charges reserve, the transactions that went through it, and ultimately that will be reported back to the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing. So in summary, the combined surplus from operating and capital activities for the year ended December 31st, 2014 is $180,829.32. And I welcome your questions.
Thank you, Kate. I have a recommendation that the reserve transfers for the specific purposes outlined in the attached table be approved for 2014 year end, and that the Treasurer's Statement of Development Charge Reserve Activity be received and a copy of the statement be forwarded to the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing. Questions or comments of the recommendation? Vice Deputy Mayor Huber.
Just as a point of order, I believe you should be also saying who moved and who seconded.
There's no motion. This is a recommendation from staff.
Okay, all right. A couple of things. Thank you, Kate. This is a huge report. I do hope that in a similar way from what I mentioned a few meetings ago, that we have a chance to discuss budget things outside of the regular budget schedule, sort of midway through, so that overwhelming reports like this can start to make more sense. One housekeeping thing, and then I have a couple of comments. You mentioned about a reserve fund associated with the Friends of the Library. Please correct your report so that the reserve fund is titled what it really is, which I believe is the Etta Shields Memorial Library Reserve. It's not the Friends of the Library Reserve. It's important for a number of reasons. But I'm curious to know, first of all, I believe that we only probably have 2 more meetings where the Treasurer, Kate, is going to be here. I'd like to know what procedures are in place for some sort of follow-up to that. We haven't heard anything at all about that yet here at Council, and she's done such a great job moving us along, but she's going to be gone soon. I'd really like to know what's coming in her absence temporarily. I'd also appreciate some awareness that we really need to isolate out the business activities of the town, because I find it very confusing to constantly be seeing the harbor and the tourist camp lumped in with everything else when those budgets are supposed to be self-contained. And I'm no longer convinced that they are completely within themselves, because we're seeing harbor stuff sort of showing up in reserve funds, and I'm pretty confident that it's got some merit and legitimacy, but then, I hear about insurance deductibles. Was that deductible for the harbor? Is it fitting in with the harbor budget? I find it very confusing that there's not a separation. And, seeing that there's a tourist camp surplus, well, I'm assuming that means that that's in excess of what we were expecting in revenue from the tourist camp, but maybe not. Again, I would respectfully request that we work towards the business enterprise areas of the town, which are the tourist camps and the harbor, that they be separate budget items so that we can understand them in their own way and not always have to be going through and making sure that they are showing up separately, because there is a place perhaps for some taxpayer dollars in those business enterprises, but in my 3rd term on council, I still believe what I was told, that they were supposed to be revenue-generating areas that operate, as separate budgets, much like sewer and water. So I would appreciate that. I do welcome all of this information, Kate. I find it very overwhelming, though, to get it all lumped together in one report like this. So again, I would ask that hopefully before the next budget cycle that we have a chance to have budget meetings where we have an opportunity to discuss things before it gets to this point, because it is overwhelming. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Whatever, you just call me Luke. Larry, did you want to make comments on that? All right. Further questions or comments? Councillor Grace.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I also have a question about the tourist camp, the reserve transfer. The amount cited is $20,253.19, and then in the reserve part, it has $19,315.79. Is that the same? Is that indicating, and it has new in yellow beside it, is that indicating that 20,000 somehow, or is that an additional 20,000?
Sorry, I believe that you're looking at the Tourist Association Reserve, and it is very small on your screen.
Oh, I see.
Understand.
Yes, okay.
The
So that's a
actual
different
tourist
thing.
camp reserve is further down, and that will show the 20,000 being transferred in. And what that represents is the unspent allocated capital funds that were put towards tourism.
Okay, thank you. So then my next question is, we do make a lot of money on the tourist camp. I think last year was at $525,000 or something was the profit on that. We had an increase of their fees. I wondered if it was possible, instead of transferring some of that money into, all of that money into reserve, if we could explore, even at this point, adding some amenities for the camp residents. I've had some calls about, one thing is increased Wi-Fi capability. I don't know how much that would cost. Some other sort of safety-related improvements in the bathrooms. So that's just something I'd like to talk about, and I'll have specifics that I'll give to Jane. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Grace. Any further questions, comments to the recommendation? Councillor Rich.
Yeah, it's through you, Deputy Mayor. So I remember that November 10th meeting, and at that point, the winter maintenance control was at 2% left, and then Council voted, or if I'm not mistaken, to use $170,000 from reserves to fund the additional road maintenance, which we didn't use as much of as we thought, which ends up becoming a surplus. Do you see how that kind of seems a little strange to me? Maybe I don't understand accounting well enough, but if we didn't have enough for the budget and then took 170 out of reserves, and then we come back and we didn't spend that $170,000 that was clearly more budget than we had, how can that become a surplus?
I'm not sure if I'm understanding your question, but I'll just clarify. There was a budgeted amount to come from reserves to fund winter control. We exceeded that. We ended up drawing more from the winter control reserve than we originally anticipated. However, in the end, we were able to keep the tax funding allocation to winter control equal with budget. So we did not drain the entire reserve. There is still some winter control reserve left. However, we used a lot more of the reserve in 2014 than we had budgeted for. And that's one of the items in the additional approved reserve transfers, to transfer that additional amount from the reserve into the operating fund to offset those costs and keep winter control in line with the budgeted amount.
Yeah, I followed that when going through, but maybe I was mistaken, but I distinctly remember us saying that we were at 98%, and it was in November, and we were afraid that we were going to really get hard. And I thought there was an extra 170,000 came across. And more than anything, I'm just trying to understand how the whole accounting system works. Cool. Thank you. Appreciate your answer.
Yeah, I think the what's important to note here is that, and this is one of the difficulties with a late year report like that, where you get a November report on where you're at, and as you can see, a lot of chips are left to fall between then and year end, and what was projected as a fairly significant deficit turned into a surplus because of a whole bunch of changes, increased revenues, less than expected expenditures. So I think that it's about how it's reporting. I think I can appreciate why staff came with that report in November, and it was important to keep us aware and keep us abreast of where they thought things were going. But it's always important to wait to the year end and see where balances are going to land, because a lot can change over a very short period of time in terms of the cash flow position of the municipality. So any other questions or comments? Vice Deputy Mayor Huber.
Thank you. I would appreciate a comment about staffing, if that's possible. Thank you.
I can provide a communication to council about what the transition plan is in the near future.
Councillor Grace.
Just a quick follow-up question about if we approve this transfer into reserve funds, if there are projects that come up in the next couple of months, can money be taken out of those? I'm thinking of the tourist camp thing. You know, if I give Jane a list of things, of suggestions, and see if we can work on some of those, is that something that we could take that surplus and use some of that?
Once we're done 2014, we can't really go back and do transactions in 2014. So if you wanted to add a project, that really would be an additional budget amendment that would come through in 2015. That being said, as I pointed out, there is the $20,000 surplus from tourist camp capital that has been put into reserve. So you may look at that balance for your consideration.
It's important to note that, and Kate can correct me if I'm wrong, but all of these reserve transactions were previously approved by council at some point. All of these transactions came as part of a budget or as a motion or a resolution of council. Council has already approved all these expenditures. Not all of them? All right. So there's some that weren't directly approved. All right. But those were transfers in. Transfers out, expenditures, all of the expenditures from the reserves were approved by council. So this is a confirmation of that and an approval of the income we got, which is a bit of a rubber stamp, really, to approve the money you made. So I guess all I'm getting at there is that decisions into the future in terms of use of the reserve funds as they exist today will be made motion by motion or in terms of a budget that we put together, and council obviously has the ability to do as it chooses with its reserve funds. So, with that, all in favor? That's carried. The next item is a staff report on the process for new initiatives, and I suspect the clerk, Linda White, will be presenting that. Take it away, Linda.
Thank you. So this report is a response to a request for staff to provide an explanation on the process required for individual council members to bring forward new ideas and initiatives for council's consideration. There's a flow chart that outlines a basic process which assists in ensuring staff are working on implementing council's approved plans and priorities, as well as provides a process for individual council members to bring forward their initiatives for council's consideration. The first step in the process is to discuss the matter with staff to seek advice on the best path forward. A matter that is clearly administrative and does not require a policy or an amendment to a policy or a bylaw will be directed to the CAO for his direction. A new initiative will be reviewed by staff to determine if the initiative is supported by council's vision or approved plan. After considering the factors and impact of the initiative, staff will determine if the matter can be addressed in an efficient manner, including taking into consideration staff's current workload. If deemed appropriate by the senior management team, a staff report will be presented for council's consideration. The council member initiating the matter will be advised on staff's recommended path forward. If a new initiative is being proposed that is not supported or justified in Council's vision or approved plan and is not a matter that staff can easily support in a staff report, the Council member may initiate the process by writing a motion introducing the necessary background and outlining the specific request for Council's action or direction. It is recommended that staff's advice be sought well in advance of the meeting in which the topic is expected to be discussed. The notice of motion will be placed on Council agenda as a notice and will be discussed at the next meeting unless directed otherwise by Council. Once a motion is tabled, Council will provide direction on the matter. And of course, the financial impact will be determined by each initiative.
Thank you, Linda. I have a recommendation that Council accepts the flow chart outlining the process for new initiatives brought forward by Council members. Questions or comments to the recommendation? Vice Deputy Mayor Huber.
I really thank you, that a flow chart has been created. I would respectfully request that the flow chart be added to with some information about new initiatives or administrative operational matters brought forth by staff members, so that we can see how that all would flow through too. I think that would be helpful in the future. So it's great that this is a wonderful way to show how things flow through. I would appreciate in the future, though, to see it from a staff perspective too, just to see how, when an idea gets generated to them, perhaps from a member of the public, how they then can flow it through to perhaps lead to a result too, because I think that would be helpful. Thank you.
Further questions, comments? Councillor Minaj.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Charbonneau. I also appreciate the flow chart. I'm concerned, and I continue to be concerned, with the comments in the middle of the flow chart, the box that says, is this initiative supported by Council's vision or an approved plan or report? I don't know what the approved plans are. I've been here as a member of the public on a committee called the Waterfront Master Plan. The Waterfront Master Plan was brought before Council, and it was listened to, discussion was had, and then it was forgotten about. It's collecting dust somewhere. This is a mistake. This is something we're not doing correct, and I'd like to know why we can't bring these plans forward, master plans, and say they're accepted and staff needs to go back and do something, or they're accepted and approved, and they're approved for use. I don't understand how we're going to bring forward a waterfront advisory committee to advise on implementation of the plan when the plan is yet to be approved. So my question would be, can we not have at least an inventory list, an accompanying inventory list of the plans and reports that are considered to be approved that action can be taken with? Or can we not have a staff report that brings forward those that have not been approved so that we can individually accept and approve them as we move forward each time, and the ones from the past? Thank you.
Thank you, Neil. I'm sure that council can, I'm sure that staff can provide you with that information and get it to you if possible. Further questions or comments to the recommendation? I just note in the recommendation, the term that used is that council accepts the flow chart. I suspect, and maybe Linda or Larry can clarify this for me, but I suspect that is to reflect that this is a guideline or a demonstration of how it ought to be done or could be done, but council is not adopting the flow chart. Therefore, it isn't restrictive. Members of council don't necessarily have to follow this particular process. I just think that there's the reason I go there is only because I think that there are varying ways to do this job, and you can do it the right way and do it well, and you don't necessarily have to follow its flow chart every time to do it that way. So I just think that I like the idea, and I like the fact that it lays it out, and it can be added in our for future councils. It can be added in the information for those new members, and it's something that ought to be followed and something, a rubric that ought to be used. But I think that I just have this view that there should be some autonomy for members of council to approach the job in a manner that they see fit, because they don't draw their authority from this council, they draw their authority from the people. So anyway, that's, I guess I'm understanding that that's how everybody sees it. Am I down the road right with that word accepts? Yes?
Yes, that is correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Deputy Mayor, I'm not sure I agree. Okay. I believe that we've been asked to set policy. Staff has provided us with a flow chart that establishes policy. This is very supportive of them. It's a partnership, and it's the right thing to do. This is exactly my point. We let these things go by, we accept them, and that means nothing. It was work almost wasted. And in your words, it was exactly what you said was, we can do whatever we want. We don't have to follow anything that's prescriptive. I believe we need to follow something prescriptive for a while to change the narrative, if you wish. That's the buzzword of today, and not free flow like it seems that we have been doing for some time. And I would like to see us adopt and approve this method.
Other questions or comments? Yeah, Councillor Huber. Or, pardon me, Vice Deputy Mayor Huber.
That's okay. The report actually has wording in it that says if a new initiative is not proposed that is not supported or justified in council's vision or approved plan, I, by the way, also question council's vision. We haven't really established that yet. And it's not a matter that staff can easily support. The council member can initiate something else. So it's kind of in there already that, in accepting this, there is other ways. So, there is wording in there that suggests that. Because I agree with you.
I don't have difficulty with the current wording of the recommendation. Yes, Councillor Mike Myatt.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I think I would caution council on adopting. I think it should be a living document, and I guess I look back to the 2004 Parks and Trails Master Plan, and there was a conscientious decision made by council at that time to have the Parks and Trails Master Plan received, and I remember back there was a lot of support for that, and if that report were to have been adopted back then, there were literally several $1 million worth of trails projects that, if adopted, I'm assuming we probably would have had a little bit more of a, pardon the word, but gun to our head to get those projects done. And I think a living document. There's a lot of merit to it. There was in that particular plan. There was 110 recommendations. Some were implemented, some weren't. The Parks and Trails Master Plan was not adopted. By having a living document, we have the flexibility, I believe, and the freedom to add and delete projects. And whereas when it becomes adopted, it becomes a little more cast in stone. So I don't think you can take every plan that comes before this council, good or bad plans. Had a lot of good plans. I don't think we can take all the plans that come before council wave that wand past that motion that we adopt everything. I just don't think it's practical. So I'm in support of a living document, and I wanted to commend staff for this report. I think it's a really, really good starting point from a planning perspective, and I think we need to leave the door open for items to be added and deleted. So that'd be my...
So I've put a recommendation on the floor. If any member wishes to make an amendment to the recommendation, now's the time. Otherwise, we'll vote on the question. All in favor of the recommendation? Next is staff report on refreshment vehicles on town property, and Linda White, the clerk, will give the report.
Thank you. The town of Saugeen Shores has a policy that provides an opportunity for food vendors to obtain a license to use certain municipal property for the purpose of operating a refreshment vehicle. A refreshment vehicle is defined as a vehicle from which refreshments are sold for consumption by the public and includes such types of vehicles as a cart, a wagon, trailer, or a food truck. The definition does not specify the type of refreshment being sold. A hot dog cart, a Dickie D type cart, and an ice cream truck are typical styles of refreshment vehicles that have been licensed in the past. The town advertises in the spring of each year that the following locations are available to be licensed, and that includes the Coulter Parkette, Gobles Grove, Chesley Street Dock Area, Denny's Dam, North Shore Park, and municipal sports parks that are serviced with washrooms and are available, and further that no concession booths are under a lease agreement at those parks. So anyone who is interested is required to submit an application along with their bid in an amount of no less than $200 per requested site. A business license fee of $175 and the required health unit approvals accompany the application. Staff reviews a tender, or if there's multiple tenders, and works with the applicant to determine the best location within the site requested. The exact location must be close to the washrooms, not interfere with pedestrian or vehicle traffic, as well as fit within the site. The licenses for these sites are for one season until October 31st. The license is not automatically renewed. The applicant must apply in the same manner the following year. So we do have a couple of new requests. In the past years, we have received an inquiry to license the Port Elgin Main Beach and the Millard Boulevard. We have received two recent requests for the main beach in Port Elgin. Both are looking for a permanent seasonal location with hydro service. One proposal would be in the direct competition with existing restaurants, and the second would not. The Port Elgin Main Beach has not been listed as an improved location for a refreshment vehicle due to the close proximity of existing restaurants that pay a lease rate or a taxation on a year-round basis. If the main beach in Port Elgin is added as an additional site to the policy, staff is suggesting that it be on a trial basis and it be located near the tennis courts, which is where the flea market area is. The area is underutilized except for Wednesdays during the flea market. A preliminary consultation with the Tourist Association representative indicates that they would not have an issue with the vendor at this location, provided they are not in direct competition with the local restaurants. They would work very closely with the restaurants and not want to jeopardize this relationship. The food vendor would also be responsible for paying the flea market vendor fee for the Wednesday markets if they so desired to stay there on Wednesdays. The town has also received an inquiry to license Millard Boulevard. In the past, a refreshment vehicle was granted permission at Millard Boulevard, and the town received complaints from local businesses regarding the competition from temporary vendors. Therefore, it was removed. This location conflicts with Cruisers Cruise Nights on Thursday nights, as food vendors have not typically been permitted during this event. As a side note, it also should be noted that the Gobles Grove area is a permitted location in the policy, and on occasion the town has authorized a refreshment vehicle at this location. However, the town also receives complaints from the local residents regarding commercial businesses being allowed at this location. So if council is interested in considering adding the Port Elgin Main Beach and the Millard Boulevard locations as sites available for licensing, it's recommended that staff be directed to include these two locations in the annual advertisement for refreshment vehicle licenses. This advertisement will indicate that the highest or any tender would not necessarily be accepted. Staff would report back at the May 25th Committee of Whole meeting with a summary of the tenders submitted and the applicable recommendations, along with any policy variations. The financial impact is that currently the rate is $200 per location without hydro, and it's proposed that if hydro servicing is provided, then the rate would be $300 per location.
Okay, thank you, Linda. And I have a recommendation that the Port Elgin Main Beach and Millard Boulevard locations be included in the advertisement as possible locations for refreshment vehicles. Questions or comments from member of the committee? Vice Deputy Mayor Huber.
Thank you. Just for clarification and then a couple of comments. Linda, you say that two expressions of interest have been made for the Port Elgin Main Beach. That's in advance of it even being in an advertisement. How would you, in the event that it becomes part of the list, how do we have some way of limiting, or how do you determine how many are okay? Is that something that is already in existence, or would that be when you wait and see how many actually apply?
through you, we would actually wait until we see how many apply, see the size of the vehicles that are being proposed, and then look at the location to see how many and who can be accommodated.
Okay, and for the benefit of all council, I'm going to assume one of these requests is related to some of the paperwork that we saw last year from somebody who already has a truck during the flea market.
That is correct.
Okay. So, they can go back and see that. I'm curious to know, this $300 per location with hydro, that's what it costs the town for the hydro. So certainly, is that what that means?
That's a rate that compensates the town for the hydro servicing.
Okay, and given, and I realize it's in the fees and charges bylaw, I guess I would ask that whatever happens this year, that we perhaps pay attention to that, because I'm kind of curious to know if that even approaches the actual cost of hydro for some of the kinds of food trucks. Anyway, then further to my comments, I would appreciate if this be split into two sections so we can vote separately, Port Elgin Main Beach and Millard Boulevard. I would not be at all in favor of a food truck or food cart being licensed at Millard Boulevard. Certainly something there a little more permanently. There's very little parking in that location already. I think it would not add to the ambiance that's there, and there are a number of large events there already, Canada Day and the regular Cruisers Night, that there are different arrangements in place for those, and I just, quite frankly, I don't see it fitting in there, and I would be upset about removing one, possibly two parking spaces to accommodate this in an area that's pretty high traffic already. Thank you.
So, Vice Deputy Mayor Huber, if you want to divide the question, we'll deal with that by motion. So if you'd like to make a motion to amend the recommendation, then we can consider that.
Well, I would, just because it then, you don't have to vote no to one thing if you're concerned about the other one. Thank you.
So I have a motion moved by the Vice Deputy Mayor that the question be divided and that Port Elgin Main Beach and Millard Boulevard be considered separately. Is there a seconder? That's seconded by Councillor Grace. Any questions or comments to that motion? All in favor? Consider them separately. Further questions or comments to either recommendation? Councillor Grace.
Mr. Deputy Mayor, I have similar concerns, but I also have questions. Going back to the Vice Deputy Mayor's question to the clerk about deciding if there are a number of people who are, once this is advertised, deciding that they want to do this. We're planning to have, let's say that we have all things being equal in terms of size and we have an excess of applicants. How do we determine? Is it a first come, first served basis? I guess it's just something we have to think about. My question also is, the Tourist Association is going to be in charge of monitoring how the restaurants feel about this in Port Elgin, the Port Elgin case. Is that true, Linda?
It would be taken into consideration, but they don't have the final decision on it, on how the restaurants feel. The message from the Tourist Camp Association or the Tourist Association is that they fully respect the existing businesses and the products that they sell, and they don't want to be in direct competition.
So will town staff be consulting with the restaurant owners about this?
If I heard that direction from the council, but I'll be taking our direction from this council.
Okay, and then with regard to Millard Boulevard, if in the report it says that when this suggestion was made before, there were complaints from local businesses that it was in competition with Cruiser Night, I also would be very reluctant to support this. I know that on special occasions we do have fundraising efforts from groups like the Rotary, having a barbecue, and I could see a real problem with that. Also, would we be consulting with local residents who are right on top of that area? I know that they agreed to the Canada Day celebrations and they work with that, but I think to have a food truck there would add another dimension that I think would be problematic. Thanks.
Councillor Grace. Councillor Minaj.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Could I get an example of what would not be considered direct competition? What would somebody want to do on our beach that is not in direct competition?
They may wish to sell a food product that's not in direct competition, such as a donut, maybe a fajita or something to that effect.
Further questions? Councillor Rich.
Through you, Deputy Mayor. Jane, what do the restaurants at Port Elgin Beach pay for lease each year now? I couldn't remember from the budget deed. I should have brought this to you before, but I didn't know this moment.
For you, I'd have to get that information for you. Got three leases down there.
Significantly more than $300?
Yes.
Councillor Dave Myatt. I almost didn't see you there.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I also had some questions about the implications of direct competition, and I think that they were answered, I suppose. But I still don't understand because some of the businesses, particularly I'm thinking about the main beach, they're selling quite a wide variety from breakfast to ice cream to hot dogs and French fries, and the whole gambit, I think, is covered down there, and I can't hardly imagine what something that would be not in direct competition down there. So I'm a little reluctant to, but if a license was granted to one of these vendors, would it be expected that they would be there every day of the week, all through this period up until October 31st? Or would they be special? Would there be a license for a sort of special events, like to come down for Cruisers Night or something like that? Because I do go down to Cruisers Night. I have an old car, and I know when you're down there and you are desiring a refreshment or a snack or something like that, it's quite a hike to get to the town venues to go and get something. There's nothing really within a couple hundred yards of the flag location. So that location I'm in favor of, because I think it would serve a purpose. Maybe not every day of the week, but on certain times, I think it would be. So that one I am in favor of. And my last question is, how does this arrangement for the vendors differ from vendor licenses that operate on private property? I'm thinking, for instance, some of the hot dog stands that are operating around either at maybe at the beer store or the Canadian Tire, and then there's some that just sort of pop up, and I'm not sure if they're directly licensed or if they have a different license, and I'd just like to hear, because there's competition there too, right?
Do you have answers to Councillor Myatt's questions, Linda?
I have a couple, yes. The town, with respect to the timing and when they can operate in that, we don't typically regulate their business hours or the time or the number of days that they have to be in that location. With respect to the private property, an application does come to the town for those locations. We do check that they have the proper zoning to allow a refreshment vehicle on those properties. We do work with them to make sure that they're in a location that doesn't impede any site visibility triangles and that if they're close to a road. They are required to pay the $175 license fee. Those folks that own the refreshment vehicles, it's up to them to find an owner of private property that is interested in leasing the land to them. That arrangement's totally separate. The town doesn't get involved in that. We just make sure that they have their health unit approval, their fire department with respect to their fire extinguishers, etc., and then the payment of the $175.
Okay, just to follow up then, if the person has paid their $175 fee and they're a licensed vendor, and maybe they're operating on private property a majority of the time, and then there was a special event taking place at one of the public locations or another throughout the summer, be it Canada Day, be it a cruise night, be it any other celebration, would then they be able to, if the site was vacant, it was an approved site but wasn't being used, would they be able to temporarily relocate for a day or so to the other location and set up their operation and then maybe relocate back to their previous location? And once they've already paid, they're an approved vendor and there's an approved site?
If they're moving from location to location, they end up paying $175 per location. So they typically don't do that. If they're moving to a special event, for a special event that's on town property, they are to go through this process, and where they're telling us at the first of the year, I want to be there, I want to have the rights, the lease rights to that property, and they in turn will choose when they're going to show up at those special events. So they would deal with us at the first of the season, ideally, and have their arrangement with the town so that they have the options whether they want to go there at that particular location for a specific special event.
So it wouldn't be typical for a vendor to be licensed at 2 locations?
It has happened, yes.
Oh, it has happened, okay.
So I got Councillor Rich and then Councillor Minaj. Councillor Rich.
Thank you for you, through you, Deputy Mayor. The Gobles Grove issue was mentioned. I'm just curious why it wasn't brought forward as part of the motion.
The reason it's not part of the motion is we wanted to put that, bring the concern to your attention. If there's some direction you would like to provide us, that would be definitely accepted. Town staff doesn't have a recommendation at this time. We feel that there is room for both the private individuals at their cottages and enough room at Gobles Grove to have a vendor at that location. But we weren't recommending any change at this point in time.
Councillor Minaj.
That partly answers, thank you, Deputy Mayor Charbonneau. That partly answers what I was going to ask, and I guess my comment would be then this policy is much like we've already discussed, that it's an open policy and we can change it when we need to. So I would wait for a delegation to come and be upset that there's something at Gobles Grove, and then we can make a decision. Is that how you read it?
I think Councillor Minaj is right, and I think that
it's not what I want to hear.
I think that, well, you probably won't hear it that often. I think though that this is the point though, that the body that is responsible for taking the input from the public on this and for assessing its effectiveness over time is this body, it's council, and we will hear whatever issues might come up over time, if we approve one or both of these locations, and we'll have to make decisions going forward as to whether we're going to change this policy or not. I think that there's a good, we have the ability right here to do that work. I'll take one more question, then we'll Vice Deputy Mayor Huber.
Two parts. The first is just a comment. It would be nice in the future to see this, if something like this comes up, to have it happen earlier so that maybe they can hit the long weekend in May, because the way that it's here happened now, we won't approve anything until the first meeting in June, I don't believe. But I wanted to ask the clerk, Coulter Parkette is on the list. Now, there's comments about the Port Elgin Main Beach, about the flea market and all of that. How many vendors did we have last year? Was one in Coulter Parkette, and how did it work with the market there? I'm just curious what the relationship might have been, if it existed last year.
No, there was no vendor in Coulter Parkette last year.
So how would you then, in the event that somebody applies for a vendor permit for Coulter Parkette because they're on the list, how would we make that work with the fact that we've sort of given up that space every Wednesday for the entire day to another organization? Has there been any discussion about that?
Only in the fact that that is one of the ones that we were going to bring back in a staff report at the future meeting.
Okay, so we have with two recommendations. So I'm going to attempt to just read them separately here on the fly. So the first recommendation is that the Port Elgin Main Beach location be included in the advertisement as a possible location for refreshment vehicles. Any further questions?
About that, with the Port Elgin Beach, I read in the report, is this on a one-year trial basis as part of the flea market? I read in the report, Linda.
That's certainly the intent, yes.
So the motion doesn't read that way, but should it?
This is allowing for the advertisement to be placed in the newspaper.
Right.
Once we report back, the term of this is, it will only go to October 31st, and then we can revisit the issue at that time. The vendor will have knowledge that when they apply for the Port Elgin Beach, main beach location, that it is only for this season, up until October 31st.
Okay.
And with regard to this motion, I just want to make a comment on it, that I'd encourage council not to get too wrapped up in the concept of competition or whatever competition that we might be creating or not creating. Council's not in the business of worrying about competition. What we're in the business of, particularly with regard to this question in Port Elgin Main Beach, is making the main beach more successful, getting more people on the main beach, providing amenities for people on the main beach, providing business opportunities, you know, all boats will rise with the tide. I can tell you that from my own personal experience in business, having sat right across from people competing directly with me on the same product lines and just down the road. If the more opportunity there is for people to get what they want, more people will show up and more people will walk in your door. And I think that we can do that on Port Elgin Main Beach, and by doing this and if we have the more activity we have going on down there, the better that beach is going to be. So we should not get too caught up in worrying about creating a monster here. What we need to do is cut some red tape out of the way and let some stuff happen. So, before I get too passionate, I'll call the question. All in favor of that recommendation? Yep, that's carried. So that's the Port Elgin one. The next one is that the Millard Boulevard location be included in the advertisement as a possible location for refreshment vehicles. Any further questions or comments? All in favor? Opposed? Or that is defeated. Okay. Do I need a resolution? I'm going to need a resolution from committee to go past 10 o'clock. Moved by the Vice Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Minaj. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Yeah.
Can you go back over that vote was 5-3?
3-4. I didn't vote.
So that's a no vote then?
Yes, I should have voted.
So it's a no vote, so it's a lost vote.
It's still defeated.
It's defeated.
Still defeated. Okay. Sorry, you're right. I should have got that. All right. Next is staff report on Bruce Power, a joint memorandum of understanding. And Larry, you bring in that one?
Thank you. Bruce Power has requested that we summarize and document areas of collaboration between them, the municipality of Kincardine, and Saugeen Shores. In order to do so, the attached memorandum of understanding was prepared and is submitted for council endorsement. The objective is to include reference to the broad areas where communication, partnership, and collaboration has occurred over the past 13 years. There are no commitments to ongoing programs, and there is no fiscal implication in the MOU on anyone's part. The intention would be going forward, Councillor Huber, to periodically review and update the document as new initiatives evolve in the future.
Thank you, Larry. I have a recommendation that the mayor and clerk be authorized to execute the attached memorandum of understanding summarizing current aspects of communication and cooperation between Bruce Power, the municipality of Kincardine, and the town of Saugeen Shores. Questions or comments? Being none, all in favor? That's carried. The next is a staff report, probably from Larry, on council visioning session project priorities.
Thank you. A draft project priority setting matrix was tabled at our previous committee of the whole meeting for consideration. Adoption of the matrix was deferred to allow an opportunity for council members to provide feedback. As a result of the comments received, an adjustment to the terminology and scoring criteria has been made. Attached to this report is the completed revised matrix proposed. Other feedback received was more generic in nature and related to the weighting already established for the first session. If this version is adopted, senior staff would then begin to individually evaluate the entire project list initially identified by council and provide a consolidated preliminary average ranking of all the projects based on the matrix for review and discussion at our upcoming visioning session, second round.
Thank you, Larry. I have a recommendation that the attached revised matrix containing criteria, weighting, and scoring descriptions for initial evaluation of the project list identified by council be adopted. Questions or comments to the recommendation? Councillor Grace.
Yes, thank you, Deputy Mayor. I just have one question, I guess, suggestion. It's on the section entitled Enhances Council's Ability to Perform its Duties. And the number, I don't know, I'll wait for you to get there. It's on page 109. For number 4, should that read, project will have significant positive impact on council's ability to perform? Just as opposed to could have a very negative significant impact, and we wouldn't give it a 4, would we?
Through you for clarification, that's the way staff would interpret that,
Okay.
as is, yes.
Could we add positive?
Certainly.
Thanks.
Councillor Minaj.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Charbonneau. I would reiterate what I've already asked for, and that is the one that talks about aligns with the official plan or existing master plans, and then under number 2, the project, the weighting 2, the project is included in a draft master plan, and the weighting 3, project is included in an approved master plan. Can we come to this visioning session with a list of draft master plans and approved master plans so we know what the difference is?
Between now and the session, staff will attempt to create a table of all of the documents that the councillor is looking for.
Vice Deputy Mayor Huber.
Thank you. The one that's titled Core Municipal Services as defined by the province. I had asked to have something added in, not necessarily with this, but core municipal services is defined by us, because there's like roads, bridges, water and wastewater infrastructure related facilities are here, but we have core municipal services that snow plowing, recreation, so that there's nothing here that sort of picks up on core municipal services as defined by us. So just, as this becomes a living document too, and, I have some issues with the language in the recommendation about, the adopted, accepted, all of that kind of stuff, but I'm willing to believe that, should we realize once we get started on this that we're missing something, or there's an opportunity that we'll take that and move it forward. But this is great for stuff as defined by somebody else, but we have core services as defined by us too, and I hope we get there. Thank you.
I just make the comment to that, Vice Deputy Mayor Huber, that there's a couple of other areas in here that sort of pick that up, particularly the one aligns with the official plan or existing master plans, including the asset management plan, and also added value to residents and visitors, I think, but particularly in those master plans, that's where the community and council have identified the core services of the municipality. And so I think you could say that if a project contradicts the official plan, it would fall outside of our core services. But if it's very much in compliance, it should meet our core services or be in line with them. So I think it's captured in the rest of the plan, or in the rest of the. Further questions or comments on this recommendation? No? Okay. All in favor? That's carried. Next is Environmental Services and Transportation, and the first one up is a staff report on 53 Fenton Drive, encroachment permit request, and Stu Doyle, Director of Public Works, will present.
Thank you. At the previous meeting, or at the March 9th meeting, Council received a deputation with a request to approve an encroachment permit at 53 Fenton Drive. This request is to allow the installation of a new set of stone steps from the subject property to the base of the slope on North Shore Road. The encroachment permit request had previously been submitted to staff and had been denied. This request also has some background, as was discussed at the previous meeting. Of particular concern was the removal of vegetation on the town-owned lands. As with previous encroachment permit requests, staff does not support entering in agreements for non-essential infrastructure. In particular, with this case, the requested encroachment would not be possible had the trees not been removed. The town of Saugeen Shores historically limits encroachments. If property is submitting a planning application, they're requested to have remove encroachments, and as we're doing capital improvements, we also look to remove those encroachments where possible. Staff recommend that the encroachment onto public lands continue to be limited, and that council refer the application to staff to resend the correspondence indicating the previous denial.
Thank you, Stuart. I have a recommendation that council continue to limit encroachments on municipal right-of-ways to preserve public lands, and further that council refer the encroachment permit application to staff to resend the previous correspondence and decision on the request. Questions, comments? Councillor Dave Myatt.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Through you, I took a drive along and had a look at this subject property, and certainly he has, the owner has gone beyond what was, I guess, what would be considered trimming, and has certainly de-vegetated the entire slope on that side of the hill. But on the way along there, I went and I counted no less than 13 other properties that have some form of stairway or landscaping that takes place on that embankment, and the owners of those properties along there are certainly responsible for keeping the grass down. If it was up to the municipality, I don't believe that they would be as neatly trimmed as they are. And being that shoreline road with the new trail and the fresh asphalt is kind of a showpiece for the town, I think that we should really reconsider the stance that we're taking on people being able to do landscaping, as long as the proper protections are put in place for liabilities. It's not going to interfere with snow plowing or road maintenance or anything like that. As long as the project is submitted and is improved to be an aesthetically pleasing type of landscaping on there. And I know I've had quite a while ago, or during the fall, I have another individual who lives along his backyard, backs along the North Shore Road, with a similar concern, and it was more of a health and safety concern, because this person has to mow the lawn on quite a steep embankment there, and he had requested the ability to put in a stepped retaining wall there to make, because he has to put the lawnmower on a rope and go up and down there, and it's really quite onerous and dangerous to do that, and he was also denied. So I think that as a council we need to reconsider how we look at these types of improvements that are being made. And I say improvements because they are, generally speaking, aesthetically pleasing to the passerby, as opposed to if the residents were to do nothing and allow the municipal property to just go wild, it would be rather unsightly along that way. So I'm having a hard time supporting this recommendation at this time.
Thank you. Councillor Grace.
I just have one question. What is our liability for a stairwell or stairway on town property? Either a new one or ones that are already existing?
Certainly a great question. With things that are installed or infrastructure that's installed not by us, not maintained by us, and things that we don't upkeep, essentially when they're put in, likely very little. But as they age and not kept up, we do not inspect them, we do not maintain them. We have no idea how they'll age or how they'll be kept up in any certain condition. So if something was to fall onto the road, this one is only about 3 or 4 feet from the road at the base. There's very little sight lines as you get to the base of this, either way, from anybody walking onto the road. A plow wing wouldn't be very far from the base of that stairway when we go past it. So those are all things we look at, and it's very difficult for us to support this type of encroachment or any as in perpetuity. They're there for a very long time, and we can say that year one we'll get insurance certificates, year one we'll look at it, but over year it sometimes does get lost track of, and those encroachments can affect us.
Vice Deputy Mayor Huber.
I completely support the recommendation as presented by staff, and I applaud Stuart and others who have had to defend this sort of policy in the past and have probably been verbally abused over the phone and in person on many occasions. I do not see any reason for us to step back from the defense of public property as public property. We set the rules on that property, and I have listened through many planning applications where things have happened, trees have been cut down, and then, oops, sorry, and then they're begging forgiveness. That's exactly what happened in this case as a precursor to the application about the encroachment. I've also sat through planning meetings where we have very specifically indicated during the meeting surveys are required. The survey stakes have been put in. Do not touch one shred of vegetation off your property. And then the bulldozers come in and the police have to be called to stop them. But again, vegetation has been destroyed. I think it behooves us to very diligently and vigilantly, if that's even a word, defend this sort of policy and to get rid of encroachments every chance we have to do that, and to limit encroachments going forward. Some of the examples that you see in various parts of town have been there for 50, 60, 70 years. But again, if they really are on public property and a property sells and then there's some change, I think of the one at the end of my street, Palmerston, where a cottage got taken down and they were rebuilding and they wanted to do something. There was a stone wall that we had. It was a condition of their permit that it had to be removed. We had a chance to get rid of an encroachment. I vigorously support this sort of thing. This is not an easy phone call or correspondence that will have to take place, but I think this is why we're here, to protect public property. We set the rules on that property. Sometimes there's reasons why encroachments are okay, but I'm sorry, landscaping and aesthetics doesn't work for me when sometimes there's just this vagrant disregard for the property in the first place. Thank you.
Councillor Grace.
I just had a follow-up on the issue of liability, because I really am concerned about I'm not talking about damaging somebody's steps. I'm talking about some little child running down the steps that are on town property. That's a busy road. And what does that expose us to? That's my concern.
Councillor Menage.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Charbonneau. I'm leaning more towards Councillor Mayette's position and to some middle ground that speaks to maybe the idea and the concept of residential site plan control in certain areas of the municipality, in particular this area. I don't buy the argument on liability, and I throw this out to you. My wife tripped on the sidewalk with her ankle, fell down heavily in front of the Coliseum on town property. We're not maintaining town property in many areas, so to impose a verbal restriction in this meeting and say that we're now worried about maintaining somebody's stone walkway path from their property down to the waterfront, I think that's a little stretch for me. So I wonder if there's some opportunity for some other kind of control where would meet the Vice Deputy Mayor's concerns, and we would be able to listen to the needs of the people on the particular property, and we would be able to ask them to meet some standards, not just tell them they can't do it.
Thank you. Councillor Rich.
Through you, Deputy Mayor. I can totally understand where you're coming from, Dave, and you as well, Neil. But there's a proper process. And the moment, if he would have come here and petitioned to allow that step to go through without cutting down all the vegetation, I'd be a lot more apt to listen. But he came in and he cut down all that vegetation. He figured that we were just going to, oh, well, it's already gone. Go ahead and build your step down. I consider that property my property, our property, and I hate to set a precedent where somebody feels that they can just come in and randomly cut down trees on town.
Councillor Mike Myatt.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'll be supporting the motion as written. I think, and perhaps Councillor Mayette's going to gain a vote and I'm going to lose one here, and that's okay. But I just think we need to send a very clear message to our residents along the shoreline that there's lands that are not to be encroached upon, and I think when one of the references made to non-essential infrastructure, and I just think that what's happened with this particular piece of property should not be tolerated, and I think we just need to send a real strong message to our residents along the shoreline, to our community, that you just can't simply arbitrarily start to cut down trees and destroy landscape along our shoreline. And so I'll be supporting the motion as written.
I think it's important to note, just for council's information, that whatever way this recommendation goes, the requirement for the tree replacement is still there, right? There's a bond has been paid, and there's a requirement that's necessary that vegetation is replaced. I appreciate that doesn't necessarily, that's a long-term thing and doesn't put it right back to the way it was right away. But just for clarity sake, that this resolution has to do with the encroachment of the staircase that's contained in the landscape design that was attached to this, and not with the vegetation, which will be replaced as required by the municipality. Are there further questions or comments to the resolution? Then all in favor? Opposed? That's carried. The next item is a staff report on Stafford and Catherine Street intersection. Stu Doyle will present.
Thanks again. Briefly, as part of the improvements on Catherine Street in Stafford, staff's been reviewing the current signage and line markings in the vicinity. Concerns have been previously raised regarding this existing layout at the intersection of Catherine and Stafford by residents and municipal staff. The intersection is an offset intersection that is misaligned in the east-west direction. I've attached a sketch on the next page there. With through traffic traveling north-south. As this intersection is adjacent to Saugeen Central School, there are also crosswalks defined in both directions. In order for the east-west crosswalk to remain, it must be accompanied by a stop sign. Staff is proposing to install stop signs in the north-south traffic to create a three-way stop at this intersection. However, due to the proximity of this eastbound approach of Catherine Street, the intersection will not be standard. Left turn restrictions would also be introduced during school hours to limit the use of the shorter turn radius and queuing area during peak times. Generally, staff complete stop sign warrant analysis to determine the need for stop signs. In this case, the warrant would not be met, but as a crosswalk already existed, and with the direct proximity to the school, an exemption to normal warrant standards is recommended by staff. Staff have reviewed and received positive feedback regarding the changes with Police Services, Saugeen Central School, a consulting engineer, and some of the local residents.
Then I have a recommendation that Council considers an amendment to Bylaw 103-2008 to implement a three-way stop and time-restricted left-hand turns at the Stafford and Catherine Street intersection at a future meeting. Questions or comments to the recommendation? Councillor Dave Mayette.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Is this contemplated that these changes will be done in conjunction with the current work that's going on Stafford Street?
Correct. We will likely implement a temporary three-way stop during the construction just to limit traffic movement, and then we would either proceed into a permanent solution or whatever direction council gives.
That area is under construction right now. Actually, I was just looking at it today. I have a concern with this design. My son goes to school there, so I go there fairly regularly, and drove in just in the last couple of days thinking about this schematic. And if you look at the heading east off Catherine Street, making a left-hand turn onto Stafford Street, at this moment there's no stop sign northbound on Stafford, but this schematic suggests that we would add a stop sign there. If you ever made that corner, you can barely get your vehicle turned before you're in the middle of Catherine Street East. I'm concerned that you won't see the stop sign. You stop at the intersection and then you're making another turn, and you have to make another stop mid-turn almost, and then proceed through Catherine Street. I have to say I'm not a real big fan of that concept. I appreciate that there's the restriction during the really busy time, which is good, and that most of the buses that leave Saugeen Central head west, which is good. But even just normal vehicular traffic, like I did that at whatever time it was, 10 o'clock this morning, when nothing was going on there at all. And if there's any traffic coming westbound off Catherine and you're making that turn, I could see people sneaking out into that intersection and there being confusion at best and possibly some accidents at worst. So those are my thoughts. My desire would be for council to refer this back to staff and ask for some other options. I think there are some options that staff have considered, other options which could improve this intersection. It's a horrible intersection, one that I pity Stu for having to try to fix because it's a difficult intersection to deal with. But I think there may be some better options, and I'd just like to hear from staff on maybe some other solutions before we finally approve this one. And those are my thoughts. Further questions or comments from the committee? Councillor Dave Mayette.
I kind of am leaning the same way as you are, Vice Deputy or Deputy Mayor. That this intersection is certainly confusing, and adding more restrictions would make it more confusing. And looking back at some police accident reports, I don't see that this is a high accident area, and this intersection has been in use presumably 50 years since the school was around, and there hasn't been any kids ran over, I don't believe, or at least that I'm aware of, unless somebody can say that there's been an accident or some incident that's caused, certainly knock wood, when we don't want that to happen, and we always want to strive to make it the safest it can be. But my experience, because I drove my kids a lot to that school during their elementary school years, and the buses take precedent for sure, and it leaves a great deal of room for the buses there, and people are generally pretty aware, especially during start and end of school hours. So if there's nothing to be fixed, I don't see a reason to change it at this point.
Stu has something, and then we'll go to
Quickly, I do agree that in its own way it has been working well, but in order to keep the crosswalk east-west, there needs to be a stop sign. So if we want to remove the crosswalk, that's an option, but to repaint that stop sign, the crosswalk as is, we need to put a stop sign in.
But there are some other options to get around that problem, I think. Councillor Minaj.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. So my understanding is each one of these thick black bars indicates the position of a stop. So that's a four-way stop then.
Three-way in the intersection, and there's another.
But there are four stop signs. I don't mind how we slice it, but it's not a three-way stop. There's actually four stop signs between those three pieces of road. Is that a correct statement?
Yeah, there's four stop signs in the sketch.
I'm liking it. I think the four stop signs will work well. Thank you.
Further questions or comments? Nope, we have the recommendation. Yeah.
Through you. Well, so how does that work? You were suggesting a motion to defer this? Like how do you?
I can't do anything. If you guys are interested in deferring it, I've suggested that you do that, but it's up to you guys to do it. To humor me and do it if you'd like.
No, I actually have some issues with it, and I wouldn't mind if we could wait, have a little bit more discussion on it. I think that would be great. I would like to make a motion to defer it.
So I have a motion to defer from Councillor Rich. To refer it back to staff for more options. Yes?
Yes.
Can I get a seconder on the motion before I take a
Yes.
comment? Okay, seconded by Dave Mayette. Vice Deputy Mayor.
Well, I wanted to second because you made it
sorry,
you guys, and there's two women sitting at the table.
You guys are all the best.
You guys.
Love you guys. All right. So we have a motion on the table. All in favor of the motion to refer back to staff for further options? All in favor? That's carried. They're opposed? Opposed, if any? Opposed. Sorry, pardon me. Okay. Next is staff report on capital projects. Stuart Doyle, the Director of Public Works, will present.
Thank you. Very briefly, we had two projects come in. The Dull Side Road project and the various water mains project both came within in budget, there's a brief description of the work that we've gone over the previous budget deliberations. So both projects came within budget. We had two tenders received for the Dahl Side Road reconstruction, and 4 tenders come in for the water main projects, and the financial impacts included.
Thank you, Stu. I have a recommendation that Harold Sutherland Construction Limited be awarded the contract for the Dahl Side Road resurfacing project, tender number 2015-6320-5530, in the amount of $228,903.01, plus applicable HST, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign the necessary tender documents. And 2, that Harold Sutherland Construction Limited be awarded the contract for Water Street and Thompson Lane water main replacement project, tender number 2015-6430-5505, in the amount of $98,329.55 plus applicable HST, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign the necessary tender documents. Questions or comments to the recommendation? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried. Next is a staff report on Clarendon Street, and Stuart Doyle, the Director of Public Works, is going to do that one too.
So this one, much the same, Clarendon Street reconstruction. We go over the job details there. We received 5 quotes. Unfortunately, on this one, we did have a capital budget allocation of $45,000. The budget came in significantly over that amount. We are proposing that the project does continue with the transfer from the road reserve to keep the project on schedule. So.
Okay, thank you, Stu. I have a recommendation that Keith Snyder Construction Limited be awarded the contract for the Clarendon Street reconstruction project, tender number 2015-6320-5550, in the amount of $72,349.70 plus applicable HST, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign the necessary tender documents. Questions or comments to the recommendation? Vice Deputy Mayor Huber.
There's a great deal of excitement about this already, so it'll be nice to see this one get started. Thank you.
Councillor Minaj.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Charbonneau. I'm nervous, I suppose. I'm interested. I'm not understanding how this one is a significantly percentage difference in the opposite direction. The others that we see were coming under budget. I remember hearing our mayor say that if we get in early, we get some good bids. I still think relatively speaking, we're early, but this has something else going on, and I wondered if there was any background information.
Stuart.
Certainly, we do our best to do good budget estimates before we come here. This one I did miss a storm sewer segment on this that did increase the value of the project significantly. So that's what's missing.
Okay. Further questions, comments? All in favor of the recommendation? That is carried. On to planning and development. We have a staff report on the removal of a holding provision for Muraski, and Larry Allison will present.
Very briefly, Mr. Deputy Mayor, this is a housekeeping matter. There's been a hold placed on this particular land for a number of years, requiring some conditions that be fulfilled, and they are now fulfilled, and the owners wish to get building permits on the property. So the suggestion is there be a bylaw on a future council agenda.
I have a recommendation that council consider passing a bylaw to remove the holding provision from the zoning bylaw for the lands described as parts 1, 2, and 3, reference plan 3R-6480. Questions or comments to the recommendation? Vice Deputy Mayor Huber.
I'm just curious, the comment in the report that says that the road's finished. When do we reach the point where we take the signs down that say that it's not an assumed road?
Stuart?
When it has been assumed.
That was succinct. Thank you, Stuart. Further questions or comments to the recommendation? All in favor? That's carried. On to Community Services, Parks and Recreation. Gee, we're almost halfway done. All right, up first, thanks for hanging in there, Jane, is a report on paddleboard business rental agreement presented by Jane K. Jagalowski, Director of Community Services.
In 2014, staff was approached by Jamie Taylor of Stand Up Paddleboard to provide a rental business at Port Elgin Main Beach as a pilot for this. As you can see in the report, that she has certainly won a number of awards, and she's provided this service, particularly in Salt Lake, for a number of years, which is a bit of a unique service in that it also provides yoga on paddleboards. She's got a number of qualifications, and she certainly wants to hire some local talent to assist her. As in previous years, Ms. Taylor will conduct her business immediately south of the existing Green Street washroom and utilize a former pumping station foundation sheet piling as her staging area, where she will have a 10x10 pop-up tent that she'll put up daily for an employee to be out of the elements. She will store her equipment in a portable trailer that will be housed south of the Green Street washroom, and it has been discussed with Ms. Taylor that although preferred the 10-foot trailer be secured, that she consider removing it. In 2014, the agreement was on the terms of $200 fee for the lease of the land, and we're suggesting for 2015 it'd be $300 and move up in annual increments of $100. 2017 it will be $500. She is proposing to commence business the first weekend of June and first Monday in September, and the hours of operation are in your report as well. We've asked that she provide the municipality with $5 million insurance coverage, naming the municipality as an additional insured. And as used stand-up paddleboard is certainly a growing sport, and the financial impact is potential lease revenue to the community services budget. Expected to be $300 for the first leased year, $400 for the second, and $500.
Jane, I have a recommendation that council supports the approval of a paddleboard rental business at the Port Elgin Main Beach for the 2015, 2016, and 2017 season. Questions or comments? I think Councillor Dave Mayette got in there first.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Very quickly, a quick question and a comment. The question is this the same business that has set up a storefront location in Port Elgin?
I just heard that this evening myself, so yes, it is.
Yes, it is. And just to comment on the report where it says that it's low impact, fun, and easy. Fun I would agree with, but it's not that low impact or easy, because I've tried it and it didn't work out that well.
Depends how far you fall.
Yeah, that's right. A long way.
We'll go across the table, Councillor Mike Mayette.
Yeah, just a quick question through you to Jane, if I could. Jane, when you come up with the 300, 400, 500, just quickly, how do you fund the basis with a new business like that starting up? Where do you get that number from?
Certainly it was difficult, and last year, as I indicated, it was a pilot year. Some of the comments that were discussed last year at this table, the fact that it was felt that it was too low. So without drastically increasing her fee, we thought this would be then at the end of the 3 years.
Councillor Grace.
Mr. Deputy Mayor, I also had a question about the fee. Just an observation that if you look at what she's being charged, even in increments, and we're talking about whether we're going to assess, this is every day from the first weekend of June to the end of the summer season, Labor Day, at $300, when we're talking about merchants or farmers market stalls at $175 for 1 day per week. It's just an equity question that I think we need to consider. Thanks.
Vice Deputy Mayor Hubert.
For the benefit of the newer members of council, it was me that spoke last year about the fact that I thought the fee was too low. I'm surprised, because I still think it's far too low. I'm surprised that the report that we got actually has nothing in it really about her experience at our beach last summer. You know, it's about Sauble Beach. I'm also surprised that last year when I asked the question, you know, do we know what she's going to charge? I didn't get any kind of response to that. I did look at her website, and certainly it's a rental business, and you know, there's some reasonable rates there. But at the same time, when you start to look at the volume of the business, and you saw what happened there, it's we're giving away basically revenue at the beach, and I can't agree to that. I also am totally against a long-term lease because you know, it sets up an inequity between the other long-term leases that we have with facilities at the beach. I realize this is just happening underneath a tent, but we're giving her access to storage, and certainly there's opportunities at the beach that we've never put this out to the public, that we would welcome proposals. She came to us. We gave her a great deal last year, and I did vote against it last year, and I will be voting against this again this year. If we were really interested in this, we should have put it out to the community to see what kind of a response we would have got, because we certainly charge more for other leases at the beach. I realize, again, they have structural elements, but some of those structures are not in pristine shape either, and I really think that we're giving away something that there should have been some more thought put into this, and certainly I'm disappointed that the report does not include any specific comments about her business at our beach last summer. Thank you very much.
Councillor Minaj.
Thank you, and in keeping with the theme tonight, I would like to ask, and I've discussed this with Community Services Department Head Jane, that we add sections of the waterfront master plan that deal with these items. So in this case, we know that this type of service, this type of activity on our beach is at least being located in the right part of the beach as per plan. So when there's an opportunity to say the plan is actually, I'm going to do it again before the night's over, but each time we can execute details of the plan and apply them to these things, I think that it's appropriate and we should be doing it. In light of what Vice Deputy Mayor Huber is saying, maybe we could ask for this to be changed, or if you take a motion for a 1 year review, 1 year only, and with the quoted price for this coming year.
Yep. So that's an amendment moved by Councillor Minaj that Council supports the approval of the paddleboard business at the Port Elgin Main Beach for the 2015 season. Effectively, is there a seconder for that amendment? That's seconded by John Rich. So that okay. So that would amend. This motion would amend the recommendation to be that, and then we would have to. So we're considering an amendment to basically eliminate 16 and 17. Councillor Minaj.
Thank you. So speak to the motion then. This would also give the opportunity for the new Waterfront Advisory Committee, when it's in place, to be able to review these things and give us, working with staff, and give us more detail and a better path forward, maybe for future years. Thank you.
Councillor Rich.
Yeah, if I could speak to the amendment as well. I want to see more activity down at the beach, and the last thing I want to do is kind of quell anything that's kind of going. I think that Vice Deputy Mayor Huber brings up a good concern about price, and I don't know what a fair and equitable price is. The other thing is I know that there are people in town who, for example, teach yoga and maybe don't have the same sort of qualifications, that had also been considering such an option and never really had an opportunity to bid at it because they didn't approach the town. And I don't know what our precedent is about things like that and how equitable and fair that is. That's the reason I think 1 year, and it gives us an opportunity to discuss it further.
I think I will agree with some of my colleagues to an extent that that there's we have a number of different, has been rightly pointed out here, a number of different sort of regimes in place across the municipality, setting prices for all sorts of different activities, and we don't really line them up. They're in different departments, and it seems like we're sort of identifying gaps here in terms of how that is applied, and probably it certainly requires review to be made more equitable, and I think that we want to make sure, though, that the overall intent of what is being proposed here is maintained and continued, and that is the intent to see that activity at the beach and continue to provide services that people want at the waterfront. I am aware, because I've been contacted about it, of certain circumstances where other organizations have been looking to do certain things at the waterfront and not been able to get that same kind of support. I know as soon as we approved this last year, I got a call from the volleyball club, about them having wanted to do a similar enterprise, renting out equipment and stuff, and that they hadn't been able to get that worked out with the town. So I think we just have these different processes and procedures in place and we need to line that up and we need to make it clear. But I don't want to make that about this individual business. I think it's a good business. They're going to set up a business in our downtown core, which is critically important to our downtown. They're an active member, tax-paying member, commercial tax-paying member of the community, and they're augmenting their business by providing another service on the main beach, which is providing activities that people want on the main beach. So I'm not going to support the amendment. I say I'm in favor of supporting the entire renewal, knowing and understanding that it's my view, and I think the view of council, that a review of the broader approach to this is necessary. Those are my views. Councillor Mike Myatt.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'm not that concerned that there was no comment in the report whether or not the business was successful or not last year. The fact is, I made the assumption with this report, with them being invited back, that the business was very successful. So I'm not concerned at all that it wasn't included in the report. I think the fact that this business is setting up shop in downtown Port Elgin is a fabulous thing. I think the fact they want to invest in our community in that matter. I think anytime we can add new activities to our waterfront as an additional attraction, I think is a positive thing. We need to be sending a clear message out to small enterprise that are open for business. And whether the fee $300 is the right amount or not, I'm really neither here nor there on the $300. But I think I'll be supporting the motion as written. I think it's great to see young entrepreneurs set up in our community.
So I'll take one more comment, and then I'm going to call the question on the amendment. Vice Deputy Mayor Huber.
I just wanted to ask a question, and quite frankly, the downtown business part is not part of this report and really is sort of secondary to the question. But I'm curious to know, is this an enterprise that would require a $175 vendor permit? Is that in addition to the fee? Because to me, it would, because it's not mentioned here, but is that part of this too?
Through you, Deputy Mayor, if this business was her only enterprise and she was going to the beach and she was from out of town, business licensing would apply. If, in fact, that she does have her own business established in downtown Port Elgin or somewhere in Saugeen Shores and she wants to extend that business to another location, then there is an exemption under the bylaw for local.
Okay. So with that, I'm going to call the question on the amendment to which will effectively eliminate the 2016 and 2017 seasons from the agreement. All in favor of the amendment? Or opposed? So we're considering the question then, and I'm going to call the question on that. I'm going to reread it. That Council supports the approval of a paddleboard rental business at the Port Elgin Main Beach for the 2015, 2016, and 2017 season, which is going to be interesting because I know that's going to be all in favor of the recommendation. Opposed? Carried. Okay. Then that moves us on to a staff report on the 2015 capital projects and capital budget items from Jane Jaglowski.
Thank you. Community Services has begun implementation of the 2015 capital budget program and has outlined in this report the proponents for the projects that are recommended for single sourcing. In each case, the rationale is outlined below. The Southampton compressor replacement at the Coliseum, the municipality is in the midst of a 5-year agreement with Core Mechanical for the refrigeration preventative maintenance and service at the Southampton Coliseum. Included in this contract is a life cycle analysis of the equipment and energy efficient recommendations. The audit identified the need for replacement of the 3 compressors with reciprocating compressor package skids. The existing units are not energy efficient and are at the end of their lifestyle. Community Services is requesting that this project be single-sourced to Core Mechanical. Awarding the work to the service provider that we are already in contract ensures that quality of work, consistency with operations and mechanical equipment, staff training, and continued regular maintenance of all equipment and refrigeration plant is a main focus by both the municipality and the service provider. The equipment upgrade cannot occur while the plant is in operation, and in order for the municipality to retain savings on operating costs, the arrangements need to be made as soon as possible, as the availability of the package skids are limited during the off-season, and to ensure we receive our equipment in time for the fall season. The second item is a rooftop unit replacement at the Plex. The municipality is in a refrigeration and HVAC preventative maintenance service agreement at the community complex and municipal hall with MK Schaub Climate Care. The unit to be replaced is original to the building and will be replaced with a 12.5-ton carrier standard efficiency unit. Community Services is requesting that this project be single-sourced with MK Schaub Climate Care, similar to the Southampton compressor replacement. The consistency with operations and mechanical equipment, staff training, and continued regular maintenance is of the utmost importance and efficiency. And the third one is the fleet for Zamboni replacement. As in past purchases of ice resurfacers, staff is requesting to continue with the Zamboni unit as it streamlines training, staff turnover in facilities, and mechanic familiarity and stocking of parts. Zamboni Company Limited, which is one of the two major manufacturers of resurfacers, is an industry leader and has provided the municipality with excellent product and customer service for many years. Our management of the equipment replacement puts a life cycle of 9 to 10 years on Zambonis and ensures that we receive a good value trade-in and allows staff to operate with updated, maintained, and safe equipment. Staff has received a quote in the amount of $87,000. There are no competitive distributors of the product, and it is the only company that sells its own equipment, and therefore the item is recommended to continue to be the sole source. The quote for the Zamboni unit is competitive and with other ice surfaces options in the marketplace. And I've indicated the financial impact for all of them. Sufficient funds have been allocated for the replacement of the compressors, and the rebate for units will be determined upon assessment. The rooftop unit, sufficient funds of $18,000 has been allocated for this project, and will seek out Save on Energy rebate for the unit in the amount of approximately $2,300. And for the Zamboni replacement, sufficient funds of $87,000 has been allocated for the project, and we anticipate a trade-in value of approximately $10,000 to $11,000. Staff is confident with the workmanship and the products of the preferred contractors, and that the prices quoted are competitive in today's market.
Jane, I have a recommendation that the following 2015 single-source capital acquisitions be approved. 1, the replacement of the Southampton Coliseum compressors by Core Mechanical Limited in the total amount of $75,000 excluding HST. The replacement of the Community Complex rooftop unit by MK Schaub Climate Care in the total amount of $18,000 excluding HST with potential rebate of $2,362.50. And 3, the acquisition of a 2015 446 model ice resurfacer from Zamboni Company Limited in the amount of $87,000 excluding HST. Questions or comments to the recommendation? Being none, all in favor? That's carried. Next is a staff report on the Community Services Grant Enabling Accessibility Fund, and Jane Jagelowski will present.
The federal government is accepting applications for the Enabling Accessibility Fund and will fund up to 65% or a maximum of $50,000. This fund is designed to contribute to creating or improving accessibility for people with disabilities. The Community Accessibility Stream of the Enabling Accessibility Fund is designed to provide funding to eligible recipients for projects that improve accessibility in communities across Canada. Projects which include renovating, retrofitting, or constructing community facilities where programs and or services are offered to people with disabilities. To be considered eligible for funding projects, projects must be directly related to removing barriers and increasing accessibilities for people with disabilities in Canadian communities. All projects must also meet the specific eligibility criteria identified in the calls for proposals, including support for the community. There are a number I've listed in here of priorities that they're looking for, and they're enhancing access to recreational spaces for children with disabilities, enhancing access for veterans with disabilities, enhancing access for seniors with disabilities. The Southampton Coliseum and the Annex requires improved accessibility as part of the 2014 approved capital. A facility audit to review accessibility compliance in the Coliseum and Annex was completed. The report identified a number of features for items that should be completed to ensure the facility is compliant by 2025, as per the AODA. Many items will be completed based on the approved 2015 capital budget approval. This includes, but not limited to, exterior routes, curb ramps, entrances, doors, signage, and washrooms. Although a lift was identified within the report, the cost is prohibited and is not part of the $40,000 in the approved 2015 budget. Due to the tight timelines, in order to get the application completed, staff selected the Southampton Coliseum Annex funding request due to the completed audit as a supporting document. Currently, all other capital projects identified in the capital forecast do not have completed supporting audits or drawings as required to complete the application. Staff is aware that the chances of receiving these funds in this round are weak due to the fact that funding was obtained in 2014 for work on Victoria Street. Historically, this has been an annual funding source, and preparing the work now will assist in future requests. It is suggested that Council consider an opportunity during the next budget deliberations to comprise a wish list of future potential projects to be considered for upcoming funding opportunities. This will assist staff in ensuring projects are application ready. At time of writing this report, quotes have not been identified from 3 elevator sources and 3 construction companies. If approved, the municipal contribution will be budgeted in the 2016.
Thank you, Jane. I have a recommendation that Council authorizes staff to proceed with a grant application for the Enabling Accessibility Fund program through the Department of Employment and Social Development Canada for the project costs associated for a lift to access the second floor of the Southampton Coliseum and the Annex Lounge to ensure the facility is compliant as per the Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act by 2025. Questions, comments? Vice Deputy Mayor Huber.
Thank you. Seeing as, there's not a whole lot of confidence in the report about, our potential success, I still am curious to know, beyond the price of the lift, for the benefit of us all, that elevator or lift would be at the back of the Coliseum. So having said that, it would require, it's pretty ugly back there, quite frankly. There's no parking back there. It's basically where there's some outdoor equipment. It would require some pretty fancy dancing to get a nice doorway and stuff like that. So when you look at the funding, $50,000, if that was 65%, you add in the other part, it's about $75,000. Realistically, what kind of numbers were you thinking about for the project? Because it's not, the elevator itself would be probably close to $75,000. I don't know, but it would require a real rethink of the back, which is not in itself a bad thing, but it's just that's not the entrance to the building, but that's where this would be.
Correct. I've met with a number of contractors and one elevator provider to date. I'm still waiting to others. We've toured the facility. It is suggested that it be at the back. It is actually, I should not call it an elevator, which is completely different. It's a key operated apparatus, similar to what is in Chantry. That what recently went into. So as I said in my report, I have not got quotes yet, but we certainly would be looking at the $75,000 and upward price tag.
Councillor Matheson.
Through you, Deputy Mayor, are we looking at something for the front of the arena to get patrons up to the top of the catwalk as well?
This would get patrons up to the lounge and up to the green room.
The green room is not usually open, so how will people, if somebody's coming in, how do they get a hold of somebody to get them into the building, get them up to the green room open?
So typically how these are installed, they include a bell service so that whoever needs to use the apparatus, they would ring a bell so that someone knows that they're there. There would be parking available at the back of the facility as well for patrons that need to use the lift.
One more question, sorry, and you probably already thought of this. What happens if they come while the person, and there's usually only one person at the Coliseum working, while they're resurfacing the ice, they have to sit and wait 20 minutes for the resurface?
Yeah, that was also discussed at our meeting too, and in some facilities what they do is they they provide a keeper of the keys. So typically users in the annex are going to be there. They would in turn have a set as well, and they would provide as another service provider all site.
Further questions or comments to the recommendation? I'll get Councillor Myatt first and then come back.
Just a quick comment about the Enabling Accessibility Fund. And Jane, I appreciate your honesty in your report. The fact that this is a really, really tough application process, and I'd like to commend staff for the grant project that was funded not long ago, and I was frankly quite surprised that it got funded, but it's wonderful it was. And so thank you for your honesty in your report. I think the Enabling Accessibility Fund, we've got to look at we look at the 2025 deadline, where we've got to look at the Ontarians with Disability Act. We're trying to make these facilities more accessible. We've got about 10 years to do it, and we're chipping away. So even though the chances are pretty slim, I think we obviously need to continue to apply to that fund. And who knows, this one maybe will be funded. But I remember back in 2009, just if I digress here a little bit, but we made an application to the Enabling Accessibility Fund for the accessible playground at Jubilee Park, and we thought we'd hit a home run with that application. We put everything in that application, and we were turned down. So it's really competitive, and Jane, you're very much aware of that. But keep applying, keep trying, and who knows, maybe we'll get lucky.
Mike, further questions to Vice Deputy Mayor Huber?
Well, in the event that we are successful, this certainly sets up some enhanced opportunities on the curling club side of the building. It would be good, though, as we just keep going forward, when we're successful with this, immediately bathrooms need to be improved, so because they kind of go hand in hand too. But thank you.
If I may, the bathrooms will be part of our plan that we're doing in-house. All of them, yeah.
I think it's great that this completes something that was identified in the report for as an accessibility upgrade, and hope we're successful. So with that, all in favor of the recommendation? That's carried. So a couple things. I'm going to need a resolution to allow us to go past 11 o'clock. Moved by John Rich, seconded by Mike Myatt. All in favor? Second thing is we're going to plow through the rest of Committee of the Whole, and then we're going to stop for 5 minutes, and then we're going to do regular council, because regular council is not going to be just a snap either. So let's finish Committee of the Whole then. We have a staff report on the Market Street Bike Corridor, and Jane Jaglowski will present.
Thank you. In 2014, Public Works completed the Market Street reconstruction project that included new sewer service, curb and gutter, asphalt, and in addition, a new sidewalk at the west end. The new section of sidewalk completes the pedestrian connection between Goderich and the waterfront along Market Street. Market Street is designated as a collector in the town's official plan and is intended to be a wider thoroughfare, providing major east-west transportation rows. It is also part of the official plan. It's indicated in the official plan that Market Street is intended to be an active. Last fall, community service staff toured the area with the former Parks Advisory Committee and to confirm the desirability of the Market Street, deemed to be a worthy recipient of being a bike corridor. It will link from the rail trail washrooms all the way down to the waterfront. The committee proceeded, and as the proposed en route section will provide a connection from the Central Loop Trail to public lands adjacent to the rail trail. This route provides important connections and provides another important linkage from the Lake Huron shoreline on motorized vehicles. The recently published Ontario Traffic Manual Book 18 identifies appropriate recommendations for signage and decals required for urban shared roadways. Approved staff will be placing bike route signs on both sides of the road every 400-800 meters. The municipality has a sign design that is currently utilized to identify areas where bikes are welcome and will continue to utilize the same design. Consideration will be given to identify the beginning and the end of the corridor with signage identified within the signage strategy. Staff will ensure consideration is given to ensuring that all sight lines are clear within the corridor. This will include the removal of some trees and vegetation, fences, garden amenities along the corridor. Some portions of the route already have on-street parking where it's not permitted, and where it is permitted, these restrictions to existing parking along Market Street. It is believed that there is more than adequate on-site parking and sufficient on-street parking close to areas affected as available as alternatives. The tabling of the required parking bylaw amendments will occur after notice and feedback from those along the route is obtained. What the Sherrills would look like and what the signs would look like. Implementation will be monitored as it is further anticipated that future corridors be identified as bike corridors. And I go on to say that about the benefits of active transportation. It's evident, and it improves our physical and mental health, reduces greenhouse emissions, and climate change. The financial impact, it is estimated that approximately $7,000 will be required for upfront capital operating costs to install the signage, line painting required to delineate the bike lane. In addition, annual maintenance time and cost will also be required on the Sherrills. Other options could be investigated to reach ongoing maintenance, but also resolve.
Thank you, Jane. I have a recommendation that approval in principle be given for Market Street from Hilker to Harbour Street, Hilker Street from Market to River, and River from Hilker to the rail trail to be identified as a share-the-road bike corridor, that the parking bylaw be updated after notice is provided to the abutting property owners, that appropriate signage will be erected along the route to recognize its shared usage. Questions or comments? Vice Deputy Mayor Huber.
My first comment is it's about time we started to do this. My second comment is hopefully the next time we have some road work on a stretch of road where this would fit in, we do it at the same time and it's not sort of thought about afterwards. I am curious to know, first of all, we did not in the budget process approve $7,000 for this. Where's the money coming from? And my other comment is that we've had kids from GC Houston here a couple of times, and so this list that you've got for future activity, that's great. Certainly, we've had requests not just from GC Houston but from other schools too about bike routes to school. So I would respectfully request that the list be revisited and perhaps Victoria Street in Southampton fit into the mix, because we've had a deputation twice now about that from kids, and I think that would be a nice going forward. But can you just give me a sense of where you're going to find the $7,000, because we didn't budget for it?
Stuart?
It's located in about 4 different budgets: in the operating budget, the signage budget, labor budget, line painting budget, and the roads budget.
Nice. Councillor Grace.
Thanks, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Jane, thank you for this. I think this is a great idea. I know this has been a goal of the Saugeen Rail Trail Association to get those connecting links, and thank you.
Further questions? Councillor Mike Myatt.
Couldn't let this one pass without commenting on just a tremendous initiative. And I know the Parks and Trails Master Plan made mention of this particular road as a connecting link from a rail trail, and I know that it's talked about in the town's official plan. Whenever time we're rebuilding, reconstructing a road that we consider active transportation, I think it's great. The Director of Community Services and Director of Public Works are working together in unison to make this happen. I think it's long overdue, but again, it takes funds to do it, and this is the right time to do it. So, kudos. It's a wonderful project.
Further questions? Councillor Minaj.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Charbonneau. Excuse me. Am I reading this right? It's going to go right across Goderich Street at the stoplight, which is where, in particular, we have some heavy traffic, transport trucks, etc. So the intersection is going to be. I'm kind of interested as to how the intersections are going to work with the bike lane, and I don't see the drawings here. I'm a little bit not understanding of where it says, although portions of the route already have on-street parking prohibitions in place. That's down the hill, I believe, near Nodwell Park. In place, some additional restrictions to existing parking along Market Street will need to be implemented. it is believed that there is more than adequate on-site parking and sufficient on-street parking close to the affected areas. So what are we going to do? Are we going to put no parking signs up on Market Street in the tourist area, heavily used tourist area as well? So listen, I'm fully in favor of it. I'm not against it. I just want some clarity on what, and I know you're going to go door to door, and someone's going to go door to door and ask people, but that Market Street from just east of Bruce Street all the way down is a heavy tourist used area, lots of cars in the summertime, and all these alternate parking areas. That's going to be interesting, and I'm curious as to how that's going to work. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Minaj. Further questions, or did you have something to add to that, Jane?
I just wanted to clarify, it's not a bike lane, so as they cross the highway, it is controlled with it'll be monitored that way. What that does is it's more of an education program than anything else. Drivers, bicycles are also using this. Be aware that you're sharing.
It's actually a method that was also envisioned in the Southampton Streetscape Plan for the High Street in Southampton. So it's something we've been looking at in a few different areas. And my question for the Director of Public Works is, and I fully support this, and I commend you on having planned this all the way through the reconstruction of Market and into this. I mean, this is long coming, but does this mean, tell me, Stuart, this doesn't mean we're going to have to litter Market Street, Hilker Street, and River Street with a whole bunch of no parking signs? Horrible, horrible, thousands of no parking signs. Is there, it'll feel like thousands though. Is there any way that we can not do that, Stuart?
It also feels that you know that what my answer is going to be based on the tone. As we've discussed in the past, for enforcement to be useful, we have to have a certain distance between each parking sign. That standard, to my knowledge, has not changed.
I think I would like us to look at it when it comes with the parking bylaw. We have options on enforcement. There's ways that I would like to know if there are ways for us to deal with that. Like it is just, to have a bunch of no parking signs on Hilker from Market to River, these residential streets, and you're going to spread no parking signs up and down them. I don't know. It's not very welcoming. I always say it. You enter Saugeen Shores on Gustavus Street, and you head toward Goddard Street, going past the high school there, and you encounter like 40 no parking signs, and some of them are like that big, the size of huge. And it's just, that's what you see when you first come in on County Road 17 to Port Elgin, right? That's what you see, and think about how that feels somebody looking at it, right? I just think that I would like us to look at a way around that if we can. But anyway, that's my rant, and it's over. So, any further questions or comments? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Okay, so we have a series of communications, petitions for committee of the whole information. Is there anything anybody wants to raise on those? I'll start with Councillor Minaj.
Well, at least two I was wondering why they weren't for action, because the number 9 is asking that we provide times. I'm going to the Chamber of Commerce meeting tomorrow night, so I wanted to speak to that separately, but I wondered why they weren't actions. And number 11 is asking for action by council as well. So I didn't understand why they were just for information. Is that because staff is going to review them and then come back with something, and then there'll be an action?
I don't think any particular action in terms of the animal control bylaw review was sparked by the discussion council had with regard to dogs on the beach. That's an ongoing discussion that staff is working on, so this will be taken by staff, I'm sure, as information as part of that discussion, and we can revisit it when we're talking about that. With regard to the letter from Mr. Hewlett with regard to Lake Ridge Park, that's a matter that could be referred probably to the new Recreation Committee for review, if it was the desire of the committee to review it. But I think there's no specific action that we could take, but I guess if there's some action that you would like to take, then certainly that council could, or you could put that on council's agenda if you wanted to.
No, thank you. I understand, and I just thought they were action. What I would like to talk about quickly then is the number 9. Clearly, and this is the same theme for me all night, the Waterfront Master Plan has a section dealing with dogs on the beach. It delineated 3 areas, one at Gobles Grove, one at Port Elgin Main Beach, and one in Southampton near Pioneer Park. That were, by that committee and in discussion with council, were put into the plan and with staff. They were viable. We thought they were viable. And I'm not sure why we can't, A, attach those parts of the plan to these documents when they come in, and B, use that plan to make a good decision. Thank you.
I think that we can, Neil, and when this comes back before council, I think that there'll certainly be a place for that discussion. We'll start with Councillor Grace.
Thank you. First, I'd like to just formally recognize Jane and the efforts of the Community Services staff who filled out the application for the Green Communities Walk Friendly recognition. That Saugeen Shores was one of just not even 3 communities in Ontario that got recognition for having a walk-friendly community. And thanks for the time and even knowing about the application and the recognition, the program. And I think this is a good step that gets us going on our recreation committee. I also wanted to just quickly talk about the Chamber of Commerce letter. I was very struck by this letter, and I think it's something, I don't have any dog in the fight, so to speak. I'm not a dog owner, but I do think that we need to recognize this changing attitude towards dogs in people's families that this letter pointed out, and I think it's something we need to take note of as we discuss the animal control bylaw. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Deputy Mayor Huber.
I just wanted to remind everybody of the Municipal Heritage Workshop tomorrow night. It's in the minutes of the Municipal Heritage Committee. But I also, following up on what Councillor Minaj said, it's almost like we need a flow chart for the public about new initiatives too. But I'm curious to know, the letter that came in from the resident about Lake Ridge Park is addressed to the mayor. How does this resident get responded to?
I think that's something we'd have to refer to the mayor.
Yeah, so certainly it was addressed to the mayor, so my first action was to contact this person to make sure that he wanted it on an open agenda. He agreed to that. Then through the mayor, we respond back what the action, if there was anything taken, and how it can be addressed in the future if it goes to the active Parks and Recreation Committee, or whatever the term is for the Parks Committee. So a letter acknowledging the receipt of the letter will go back to him.
Up next, Councillor Dave Lyon.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. And I'll just make a quick comment with regards to number 11, which is the letter regarding Lake Ridge Park again, and only because I am mentioned in that letter as somebody that he spoke to, and he and I did have a conversation about that. And since then, I've had a conversation with Jane on that park, and certainly that park is a little bit controversial in that we took out children's equipment and put in the adult fitness equipment. We did that as part of when I was the chair of the Parks and Trails Advisory Committee. We did it consciously to try and create a different kind of park, and now Mr. Hewlett points out that there could have been maybe a better selection criteria, and that could be debated either way, but either way, those parts are cemented in there, and they're not probably going to be moved. But we are, in conversation with Jane earlier, there is a plan to add parking there, and of course we heard from Saw Green today that they're going to be planting more trees there, and the landscaping is a work in progress, and that's all going to improve the aesthetics, and there is going to be a children's facility, at least one, maybe more in the future, installed in that park as well. So it's, I will be, if it's not the job of the mayor or staff, I will be touching base with Mr. Hewlett at some point and feeding back some of these things, because it's an extension of the conversation we had already.
Thank you. Councillor Mike Myatt.
Yeah, it can certainly be an extension of what I presented in the budget, really, about that park, so that's...
Yep, I think that's would be great, Jane. Thank you. Further questions or comments, any of that? You have one, Dave? Councillor David Mayette.
And not to do with that particular item, but the other item, which is number trespassing on private property. It's a private member's bill, and I would just like to go on record as saying that I think that we should support this. The laws around trespassing on private property are quite antiquated in the province, and the fines are either not applied or so insignificant that it doesn't matter. And anybody, particularly our residents that live in the Saugeen ward, who own private property that sometimes expansive that we're not looking at every day, this trespassing is quite an issue. And I think that we should, in some way, support the MPP on this private member's bill.
Linda, can we put that back on next council? We'll do that. We'll put it back on as a petition for committee of the whole action. I'll give you the opportunity to suggest that council send a letter of support, and we can discuss it then. Further questions or comments? Seeing none. Then the last item on committee of the whole is an information report from the CAO on large wind procurement. Any comments on that? It's there for your information. I just want to say I appreciate Larry putting this on the agenda because what it demonstrates is the town of Saugeen Shores continues to take action on this file, that through our administration we're continuing to monitor it and continue to consider every conceivable approach to pursuing the municipality's interests on this matter. Councillor Grace.
Thank you. I just have one question, Larry. Your last statement about the next round to commence in 2016, 2017. Any idea how much warning we'll get, how soon they'll come to us with advance information?
Through you, I in fact believe now that may be accelerated and maybe starting in the fall. I'm hoping that it will take them so long to review the packages they're going to get now that they'll actually end up starting in 2016. But the last indication I saw was November, December of 15. So I'm keeping my eyes open.
Nothing further, then can I get a motion to adjourn? Moved by Councillor Matheson, seconded by Councillor Rich. All in favor? We will reconvene at 11:25.